From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything IU we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric. And as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics.
Hello, Ward.
Hello, Eric.
Well, we got a packed show today. We're getting into the portal. We're going to talk about the future, and we're talking to one of our favorite guests of all time in what could be the most celebratory time of all time. Can't wait to get into both of those. But before we do, we are, as always,
powered by
CommunityCars.com. Sponsor of the pod, Hoosier Hysterics. CommunityCars.com. Hoosier Legends talk with Ward and Eric. CommunityCars.com.
I mean, we talked about them a lot. We talked about Community Cars and the family that we got to spend time with for the Rose Bowl. But guys, they're part of your family too, Community Cars. They are as big of a fan as you are about all things Indiana. And if you're going to spend your money on a car, which you are going to do inevitably, who better to spend your money with than Community Cars, CommunityCars.com.
If you're going to spend your money on a bike, do not bother.
They don't have them. They don't have them.
You know what?
Real missed opportunity.
CommunityBikes.com.
Also, refrigerators. Where are they? Where are they to keep your food cool and fresh?
Well, you know, you can't do everything. So if you just do one thing and do it right, and that's cars at Community Cars, bless their souls. Are you going to see Evan and his family or some of his family in Atlanta?
Yeah, Evan, I think Evan was planning on not going to Atlanta. They brought the whole family to the Rose Bowl, which is a huge trip, obviously. And then they thought, let's skip this one, and then we'll do the championship game. And then the more I talk to Evan, he's like, no, I got to go to the Final Four. I got to see this. So he will be down there, and we will be seeing the game together. So can't wait for that. All right, before we get into football extravaganza, let's talk about basketball. Indiana played Washington, who's ranked about 53rd or so. Now they're 60, I think, in Bart Torvik after the game. They're not a very good team. They're fine. They're fine.
Yeah.
They're definitely not a good team on the road. And, you know, we beat them pretty soundly. We beat them pretty well. The beginning of that game was so weird because our offense was out of control. I mean, out of control. And our two best offensive players did nothing.
Yeah, well, and they weren't doing too shabby either. The first 4 minutes, there was like 27 3-pointers by both teams. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, look, it was a weird game because I'm looking at the box score and I'm seeing we're shooting like 70% and we're not missing threes. And then we go into the half up like 12. And I'm like, shouldn't we be up by more than 12? The defense was not good. I think we can say that. The defense was not good.
That we can say.
And then the second half, you know, Washington immediately cut the lead to 4 in the first few minutes. Trent Sisley came in and played some big minutes and hit some big shots.
Yes.
What was nice about the win is we scored 90 when Lamar Wilkerson and Tucker DeVries did not have great games. Now, Tucker, there's something weird going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Lamar had an excellent second half.
He did.
And
right.
He showed up right when we needed him. Him and Trent came in when it was starting to get a little dicey. They got it down to 4, and it was like, oh, boys. And Lamar got cooking, and Trent just went crazy for 10 points in 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I read some stuff online that people saw Tucker limping a little bit and maybe getting worked on or talking to the staff about some kind of potential injury. I'm not sure. He didn't look great. But luckily, Connerway was out of control. Connor Enright had a great game. Like, we had some weapons do some things, and we scored 90 when one of our top 2 offensive weapons was not a weapon on Sunday night, and Lamar played a half that was really good, but scored 90 against a Big Ten opponent. That's always good. Giving up 80 is not good.
Right.
We got one more game, which I'll call the preseason, which is against Maryland, who is god-awful. I mean, they are god awful.
Well, I don't think it's fair to call it the preseason because Big Ten's Big Ten. So if you're
Okay.
going to count the good teams, you got to count the bad teams.
Okay, that's fair. I'll say we're ending. It's the last game on the easy part of our schedule.
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, it's a bit of a murderer's row coming up, and it's quite horrifying.
We got to get one of them. We got to get minimum one of them. Those next 4, we got to get a minimum of 1.
Well, first of all, looking at the game that just happened, I'm still a little bit befuddled maybe in that game why again Sam wasn't getting more minutes than Reed. I didn't really see what Reed was doing for us that Sam couldn't do more of or better. I don't get that. It's one thing where we have such limited size, and clearly you got a couple of big dudes down low, one which they're talking about as a lottery pick.
Yes.
And I just love that his dad's name was Burkhardt, because all I kept doing when they cut to him is I'd go, I work hard for my family. I work very hard for my family, and my father-in-law there, and I'm doing it just for him, just because he thinks he's that whole side of the family's German, and they just think it's hilarious to do a stupid German accent. But yeah, almost nobody on this team has any kind of touch around the rim. They're here to shoot, not to finish. But Sam can finish a little better than most, and I think certainly better than Reed, who sometimes from like 2 feet away somehow misses the rim.
I know, and does not finish through contact at all.
No, just does not. Bless his heart, just does not have a big body despite the height.
Yeah, I agree with you. I will say this: I trust Darren. I just don't think Sam or Reed are Big Ten 5s. They're just not Big Ten starting 5s. And, Darren gets to see Sam in practice every day too. And he's looking at things that we're not seeing. So there must be a reason. I trust Darren on this.
But I've seen 14 games. And besides when Reed lost the starting job, and I forget which game it was.
Yeah.
But then he came in like his hair was on fire, but it was against a weak team, and he played like a grown man for that game. And I was like, well, where's that guy been? And then he went back to what he'd been. And so for me, in 14 games, I've just seen almost exclusively Sam outperform him. And it's fine if Sam can't play 30 plus minutes, but I think he should be getting the majority of the minutes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I again think it's weird to say 14 games in, but we have not consistently played good teams. We haven't, we have not played a good team in the Big Ten, and we're 4 or 3 games into the Big Ten. And we have not played a good one. And we will not play a good one until our 5th game. So we have to win against Maryland on the road. Have to. And then those next games coming up, do you have it pulled up in front of you? I think it's like Nebraska and Iowa, Michigan State, and Michigan, is it?
Sorry, I was looking at the standings. Not that really matters.
I know Nebraska, Iowa, and Michigan State are coming up in the next 4 games. And I believe Michigan is too.
All right. We have got at Maryland next. Then number 10, Nebraska is coming to Bloomington.
At home.
Yep. And then we're going to East Lansing, 12, Michigan State. Then number 19, Iowa. Here we come. We're going to get the comparisons for as long as McCollum and DeVries are both at their schools. And then we are lambs to the slaughter in Ann Arbor.
Is it at Michigan?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I do think they got to win one of those games. Minimum 1. If you can get 2, if you can get Nebraska at home and Iowa at home, it's super successful.
Are you including Maryland?
No, not including Maryland. I'm assuming Maryland's a win.
It's on the road against
I don't
the
care.
Big Ten.
They're so bad, Ward. They're like ranked 150th or something. They're terrible. It's basically a bye game.
How good was Minnesota? Are they worse than Minnesota?
Yeah, they're about as bad. They're worse than Minnesota. No, they are worse than Minnesota statistically, significantly worse. I think Minnesota's like 105, and I think Maryland is like 150.
Okay, then we have a chance.
Yeah, look, this is a team where if they shoot the ball well, they're going to be able to be in a lot of games. And if you shoot the ball well and we hit 15 threes in a game, the game is going to come down to execution at the end of the game. Will we be able to get stops, and can we execute when, the refs don't call what they normally call at the end of games? Who knows? But they're going to have to shoot the ball well, especially shoot the ball well on the road.
It seems like we've gotten a little smarter with silly fouls. There's still a few for sure being that aggressive, but we seem to be growing into a maturation process there. And yes, I can stall for time and
no, not stall. I want to speed it up so we can get to our guests, and because my dog's about to eat her poop. I'll be right back. You keep it going.
Sure. So now that I'm just talking with you, my friends at home, Eric is tending to pressing business. It looks like this team is not only going to live by the three and die by the three game to game, but even within the game, because obviously we were living by the three in a good way in the first half. Then we get a little cold. They start surging, and it's uncomfortable that even a very good shooting team, which I think we can say we are a good shooting team, borderline very good on some nights, great shooting team, but that streakiness can go from not only game to game, but within games. So even when when you start off on fire like we did, it's not necessarily a safe lead, because it's not like then we can just manufacture points. What I did like to see a little bit of was us taking some of the mid-range when it was available, because they were pressing out on us. And I think one was from Tucker and one was a Lamar in pretty short order, and they hit some mid-range. And I know we've all just hated the mid-range so desperately, because that's what Woody liked to do, because that's what Woody shot in the early 80s. But when you do have a couple players that can hit them, and then what does that do? That kind of discombobulates the defense again. Now they have to cover that area too. Maybe that opens the inside or the outside back up. So that was nice to see. But at the end of the day, if we're not hitting from the outside, even for an 8-minute stretch and a half, it's scary.
It is. It's funny on the mid-range thing. Another coach once told me about the mid-range. They're like, look, it's just really hard to get wide open shots in basketball. In college basketball especially, the court is more condensed. It is super hard to get wide open shots. If you get a wide open shot and you're 15 feet away and you've got guys that can shoot, they should take the shot. And I think with Woody, we were just seeing a lot of 19-foot shots, a foot inside the three-point line. That's a harder shot than a 15-foot shot wide open. If Lamar Wilkerson is wide open for a 15-foot shot, I want to see him take it. I don't want to, unless Tucker is wide open for a three, I want to see Lamar take that shot. Same with Tucker. If he's wide open at 15 feet and Lamar isn't wide open for a three, we're not making a living out of it, but you got to take what the defense gives you at a certain point, and they are overplaying. You could see the beginning of that game. The Washington defense was like, we are not going to let Lamar Wilkerson shoot, and we are not going to let Tucker DeVries shoot. But Tatum Connerway and Connor Enright, if you're open, go for it. And they were open, and they drilled shots. So that was great to see.
And Connor, didn't he get 9 assists?
Yeah, and no turnovers.
And no turnovers. He's leading the team. I think he's like at 5 assists a game. And obviously he's a little overmatched, and there's going to be a few guys he goes up against in the conference where that's really apparent. But, when you're looking at Washington, what would you call like a mid to mid lower, like Big Ten team? Connor can be really effective on both ends. And when you have Tatum not only looking for a shot outside and making it, but then also driving and finishing sometimes, you start to see like, I do think this team has got a chance to be upper mid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And look,
like upper mid and maybe lower upper tier. I feel like that's what we're playing around in, and what that means somewhere in the 6, 7, 8 range. It sort of depends, and how consistently I think we're going to be able to hang with about every team in Bloomington and hopefully beat most. It's just, can we get some shots to fall on the road will kind of, I think, be the difference of maybe 3 critical games that put us in or out of the tournament.
I agree. I mean, when you look at the conference, Rutgers, Oregon, Minnesota, Penn State, Northwestern, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Maryland, and I think USC also, those are not good teams. That is half the conference. That's 9 teams. None of those teams are scary at all. Half of those teams are dog shit, like real dog shit. And the other half, like Wisconsin and USC and Ohio State, may be able to put it together for a little bit, but when they play against good teams, they get beat. They're just not very good. That's half the conference. Then there's us, that we're team 10.
Yeah.
And then you've got Michigan and Michigan State and Illinois and Iowa and UCLA that are good teams, And so, like, can we break into the top 5? I don't know if we can do that this year, but if you can be in 6 to 9, 6 to 10, you're going to make the tournament.
Yeah.
And we got to make the tournament.
And I think that's very doable. And look, one thing in the Woody years, you were always quick to point out is even if we won 8 or 9 early season games because we were playing terrible opponents, the analytics did not like us. And you were always quick to point out that Bart Torvik and Ken Pom were like, look, guys, we're 45th, we're 50th. But consistently through this preseason, the numbers like us more. And we're in the low 30s, high 20s with these guys right now.
Yeah, 19 on Bart Torvik.
Oh,
yeah,
19. It's up to 19. Yeah.
Yeah, Bart Torvik and Ken Pom like us better than the net. I think in the net we're 30th, but that's because of we haven't beat good teams. The net does weigh wins. Bart Torvik and Ken Pom just look at the numbers. And look, I have hated the schedule. I don't like it, but they did what they needed to do for the most part with that schedule, which is blitz bad teams.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do to get your metrics good. And they did for the most part. And Penn State blitzed them, scored 90 against Washington. Although it didn't really affect our metrics that much because the defense was so bad.
Yeah. It kind of neutralizes it.
But we stayed where we were, which was pretty good. So now you got to pick off some wins. And after the Maryland game, which will not impact our metrics because they're terrible.
As long as we win.
Yeah. I mean, you got to beat them and beat them soundly. But then it's going to be, those next 4 games are all potential losses. You have to win at least one of them. 2 of them are at home. Can you get both at home? Can you beat Nebraska and Iowa? Those are huge wins if you can get those.
Yeah.
And we'll see. But Ward, this is about football time.
Bum, 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 bum.
Let's get to it.
Here comes our guest. Here comes our guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Hoosiers of all ages, it's the most bored man in America, the man who just can't find anything to do with his time. He's here with us today. Who is it, Eric?
I mean, we had him on before. We're going to have him on more and more because Indiana football's all the craze. And when you're talking Indiana football, there's one guy to talk to. He is Peaks.com, IU football writer. He covers recruiting. He covers the team. He covers coaching. He covers it all. And he's been doing it forever. He is the man. One bad motherfucker. I can't believe I just said that. Can't believe I said that. He is Matt Weaver.
Thank you, guys.
Let's just start with, to go off what Ward said. Have you ever been busier covering Indiana football?
Probably not, because the way the calendar worked out this year with the portal starting literally the day after Indiana played in the Rose Bowl. So I took the red eye home, slept a few hours on the plane, came home and got right to work on portal stuff. So yeah, it's, and then obviously, since, there's only one portal window this year, the 2 weeks from the 2nd to the 16th, and you have games going on, you have to cram visits into like a day or two, prepare for Oregon. I'm guessing there's going to be another cram session of visitors after the Oregon game, after they beat Oregon. And then you're going to have what is it? The 19th, I think, is the national championship. So you'll have 10 days. You have a little bit more time than you did this past week. Not a lot, but a little bit more time. But the portal closes, a few days before, obviously, at least for everybody, but the 2 teams in the national championship, it'll close on the 16th. There's a 5-day window for, whoever Indiana plays the national championship. There'll be a 5-day window for those 2 teams once that game ends just for those players from those 2 teams to go in. So, it's busy. It's busy.
To be clear about the portal window, this is the window for people to enter the portal.
Yeah.
They
you don't have to make a decision.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, you can enter on the 16th, and you could. I mean, I don't know that this will happen, but I guess it's possible a guy could enter 15th or 16th, stay at his current school. Like maybe he has to finish out a semester or whatever he has to do, academic stuff. Maybe not. I wouldn't think you wouldn't practice with your team. You're not going to go through spring ball with your old team, I should say, and then pick a school in like May. You could do that. I think that's going to be pretty rare. I think most guys are going to want to make their decision now and get going on to their next school, for the spring semester. But it is possible because there's no spring window. This is it. There's only, which, I mean, Indiana picked up some good players in the spring. I mean, Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt, D'Angelo Pons. I mean, you go on and on. CJ West last year, they picked up. There's more guys I'm forgetting, but they picked up some really good players in the spring, and that's been the case for probably a lot of teams. So you've really got to get your roster nailed down, in the next couple of weeks for the upcoming season.
Well, we have so much to cover, and your time is so precious, especially now. But just for one quick moment, we just have to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, not just tonight, but the day before the Rose Bowl. You got to town, you made it to the event. You were there representing Pigs along with Rabbi and Jared. And if you could just give us just a 30-second, 1-minute reflection on your time in Pasadena, finally covering your beloved Hoosiers in the Rose Bowl, curb stomping the Alabama Crimson Tide.
I think the best way I can describe it is after the game was over and they set up the stage and I was out on the field and they had ropes up, I was standing literally at midfield, and I took a video and I just kind of slowly spun around, probably about 30 seconds. And in the last 10 seconds, I said, I am standing at midfield after Indiana won the Rose Bowl game on the Rose Bowl Stadium field. Or I said, I'm standing at midfield on the Rose Bowl Stadium field after Indiana just won the Rose Bowl. And I put an expletive in between in front of Rose Bowl. And I said it to my closest friends and family, because for about 5 minutes I was a fan. I wasn't like out there celebrating, but for 5 minutes I just wanted to take it in and kind of be a fan. And maybe there wasn't even 5 minutes. So that to me is when I was just like, this is incredible. Like, last year when I got to do the UCLA game, it was cool, but this is so, I mean, it's the whole stadium, everything about it's different. Like just walking in, everything was different. Like it felt kind of like the Super Bowl. I've never been to a Super Bowl, but that's what it would seem like to me. So it was awesome. And so for a few minutes I did that, and then I got back to work because, I had a job to do. But for a few minutes I shot a video and sent it to people and got some good feedback on it.
Awesome. All right, so let's get into it. Before we get into any specific player, so I want you to not give us your opinion on any specific player right now. We'll do that in a minute. I want to just talk broad strokes, because Ward and I, right before we started this podcast, were talking about how on this podcast, I think even with you as a guest, in the Tom Allen era, we talked about how the success on the field was going to lead to recruiting success. And there's no doubt that Tom Allen did see some recruiting bump ups, and leveled up a little bit versus what Indiana had done before. But I don't think we ever saw the explosion that we all were hoping to see. And even after last year, the success, the high school class that Cignetti put together for 26, I think is the highest rated Indiana high school recruiting class we've ever had. But I think we were all waiting for an explosion. It seems like the explosion is happening, and we are in the middle of it. And just to give some numbers, I just did some quick numbers off the 247 site. Last year's portal season, after the season ended, Indiana's portal class, which I guess included spring commitments as well, had 23 commitments, and there is a points value that 247 puts on it, which is a function of both quality but also quantity. The number of players you get does impact that number. It's not a 1-for-1, but it does impact it. And our rating last year, our points, 23 commitments, was 38.74. We had 0 5-stars, we had 3 4-stars, and 18 3-stars, and then a few others that weren't rated at all, that equaled the 38.74. To put it in context, the number one team in the portal class was LSU, which we know has basically unlimited money. They had 18 commitments, and their points was 71.01. That was 2025. Here we are in 2026 with the portal just being a couple days old. Indiana has 9 commitments, so 9 compared to 23 for the total class last year. And our point value is already at 41.67. So our 9 commitments are already 8% better than where we were for the entire class last year. We have 3 4-stars, so we've matched with 9 commitments the same number of 4-stars that we had last year with 23 commitments, 6 3-stars. And to put it in context, right now, the number 1 class in the country, portal-wise, is Penn State, who obviously has a lot to rebuild with a new coach. 19 commitments, and they're at 51.44. So, again, Indiana at 41.67 with 9 commitments compared to 51.44 for 19 commitments. Weaver, can you just talk about, are we in the middle of this explosion of recruiting success that we thought was possible with Cig and success on the field?
Yeah, I think so. And people kind of wondered after the first, after the 24 season, what happened. It takes a little bit of time just because you got to build those relationships. But I think not to people, but I think you had to do it again. And you had to put together another good season. And I mean, obviously this season is historically good. But even if you would have gone like 10-2 and played in a really good bowl game, I still think you had a chance to these guys. But now you're getting elite guys, and I know we're going to talk about it in a minute. But like you had portal quarterbacks, I was told, reaching out to Indiana, saying our guy is really interested in playing for you. And we'll talk about the portal quarterback they got, but I mean, they had people recruiting them as much as they were recruiting, other players. The other thing to look at, if you do the average, last year IU was 86 point something in the portal. They're 89.33 right now. That's 5th best in the country. That's the average.
Just on the average. That's a strict function of quality.
Yeah, that's the quality. That's not and listen. The quantity is it's a little frustrating because you could load up on a bunch of and that's all. You can get a bunch of 3-stars, and a 30 class 3-star might be better than like a 15 class 4-star or whatever it may be. I don't know if that could be, you know what I mean, like, or have as many points, and it's maybe not the same thing, but they are. I mean, they pretty much almost got this weekend. Almost everybody they wanted. There's a couple guys they're waiting on, and we can talk about that. There's a couple guys that they kind of backed off a little bit, but basically they got who they wanted. I mean, and now I will say this: in portal recruiting, when you bring guys in for a visit, especially probably this first weekend, you probably have a pretty good idea. Let's be honest; they've been talking to guys. All schools have been talking to guys for weeks, whether the NCAA allowed it or not. So you pretty much had an idea that you're going to have a good shot. Now there were still some snags. There were still some negotiations going on, but they got it done, and they're sitting at 9. I think they're probably about halfway home, maybe a little less than half. I think the goal is to get around 20, maybe in a couple more than that, but it's been a great start. I mean, they have filled some serious needs with this first weekend of portal recruiting.
And that goal of around 20 would include potential spring class or spring ballers.
Well, yeah, but this is that they'll have to get to 20 now. But I mean, There could be guys who are still in the portal, but they have to go in now. So you can't wait. There's no portal after spring ball. So anybody who goes in the portal next 2 weeks is who you're going to get. Now, maybe you could, like I said, maybe there'll be some guys who waited it out. I'd be a little bit surprised by that, but I guess I wouldn't be shocked.
But yeah, basically, there is no spring class this year.
No, there's no spring class. Like I said, I think there could be guys who waited out. I just would be shocked by that because I think if you waited out, you're probably in trouble. There's probably not going to be a lot of spots left.
What is going to be interesting is what happens in spring ball. It's happened for Indiana. Is guys come in, they go, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm not going to get playing time here. I'm behind X, Y, and Z, or it's just not a fit for me. I'm out of here." The way the NCAA is set up right now, you can't do that really until you get sued, which maybe there will be a lawsuit, and then it opens it up.
I think, Eric. I honestly will be surprised if there's not. Yeah, somebody's going to sue and say this isn't fair. You had it open. You know what I mean? It's going to happen. His value's getting hurt because he's not going to all this, whatever it is.
Right. I was promised this. I think it's going to happen. Promised this.
Yeah. It didn't. I think it's absolutely going to happen, and we'll see. And the NCAA right now is basically in lawsuits. They're Alabama, and the people suing them are Indiana. They're getting clobbered. You know what I mean? They are getting hammered right now. They can't win anything to save their life. So I don't know what's going to happen. I did like Nick Saban, not to get off course. He talked about doing it like the NFL. move spring ball back.
Yes.
Kind of like in May. Do like where you accumulate talent like the NFL does, like in April and the spring after the season's over. I think it would help. You maybe you wouldn't have the problem with the coaches leaving and all this kind of stuff. And the fact that Indiana and Oregon, I mean, Oregon has 2 coordinators leaving. They've got to recruit for a new program and game prep for Indiana. I said this on our board. I'm really curious to see. I think Oregon will be prepared, but I'm just wondering. I mean, like I messaged a staff member who's not an assistant. He's in the recruiting department, and I said, "How hard is?" I said, "How is Oregon doing this?" He said, "It was like 10:30 last night." He's like, "Dude, I'm still at the office." He said, "I have no idea how those guys are putting together a new roster and game planning for us. Like, how do you do it? There's only so many hours, and you got to sleep a little bit. I mean, you got to get a little bit of sleep. So it's stupid." Well, there's no other word for it. This is all stupid what the NCAA's done.
Agreed. And you figure it not only maybe potentially hurts teams in that situation for their upcoming game, but also while those guys are trying to get somebody to go to Kentucky while they're coaching for Oregon, then who's doing the work to try to get the kid to come to Oregon? Because you've got to assume that Shanahan and Haynes are a huge part of the presentation and the pitch in getting the guys who come to IU to want to come to IU next year. So with those bodies not there, and I don't know, does Oregon know who their coordinators are going to be next year? That just seems like it's hurting them now and for next season.
Well, and listen, I hate to say this, but if you're a coordinator at Oregon, don't you try to take a couple players with you?
Yes.
I mean, like, it sucks. It does. I feel bad. I honestly feel bad for programs that have to go through this. And if Indiana go through this, it would be awful. It would, like, if Brian Haynes had gotten a head coaching job and he stuck around, this would be a nightmare. Like, it would be really, really hard. And it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. When I say nobody's fault, not the coaches or the players' fault. It's the NCAA's fault. Totally. They brought this on themselves, and they have created.
But Matt, let's be clear. When you say it's the NCAA's fault, that means it's the presidents of the university's fault.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Okay? You're right, Eric. Absolutely.
Like the NCAA has no organic power. They are only granted power by the presidents of the universities who imbue them with power. And the presidents of the universities have been short-sighted and stupid and slow. They haven't understood this, and greedy, and that this is where we are. Okay. All that aside, Ward, we want to hit you. We want to go player by player here. We've got 9 commitments so far. Okay. Ward, we'll play portal roulette. You pick whoever you want here.
Well, there's real 2 headliners here, I'd say. So I'll take the one that's already been alluded to. The only replacement, Fernando Mendoza, a quarterback from TCU, Josh Hoover. What do we think, Matt? We've got, everybody wondering about how in the world you can replace Fernando Mendoza. How'd we do?
I think they did pretty good. Now, to say he's going to be Fernando, that's not fair to Josh Hoover. It's not fair to Fernando because Fernando just won the Heisman. But I do think if he comes in and he works with Chandler Whitmer, Mike Shanahan, Kirk Cinetti, I think there's a shot that Indiana's got another guy in New York next year. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I wouldn't be shocked if they've got another guy in New York at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. This kid's really good. Now, what's interesting, he committed to IU in high school. He's from, I think it's Heath, Texas, or something like that, Rockwell, something high school. Great, really good baseball player, quick release, good arm. I wouldn't say it's an elite arm, but he's got a quick release, good actually. He forces the ball a little bit. Now, he runs an air raid, so they're throwing the ball a ton. And I'm not sure how much of a running game he's had at TCU. I've not studied them a bunch, but he's going to have a run game at Indiana. That's a given. But this is an outstanding get, and he really, really wanted to be at Indiana. They were really pushing for a deal with IU, was what I was told. So this is a very good get. I mean, I know you go by the rankings, Thorsby's up there and Sam Levitt and these guys. I think this is a really good get. Like I said, he was committed to IU. He actually decommitted when IU fired Nick Sheridan. He was really close to Coach Sheridan. I communicated with Josh back then. He's a good kid. At least he was back then. I'm assuming he's still a good dude. So this is a heck of a pickup. Really good pickup for Indiana.
All right, that's awesome. One question, Ward and I were going back and forth on text about it. With Rourke was as Ward, I think, has called him in one of our texts, he was a statue back there. Now, part of that is because that's who he is as a quarterback, and part of it is because he was playing on a blown-out leg. So, he had to be. And clearly, getting Mendoza and we talked about this when we got him. He was a guy who had much more mobility, that he could extend plays, but also you could call plays for him, and he could do some design draws, and you could get him to run the ball a little bit, and he did this year. And we saw that especially in that Alabama game when things weren't great at the beginning. He made some things happen on offense. What is the deal with Hoover? Because his rushing stats are paltry. Now granted, we've talked about this. So much of your rushing stats when you're a quarterback that gets sacked a lot, which he did,
Yeah.
is your yards get minused by sacks. But give us in the spectrum of Rourke to Mendoza, where does Hoover lie in the mobility category?
I think he's got pretty good mobility. I watched the 15-minute highlight tape of him, from this year, and he kind of reminds me of, honestly, a little bit. And I know Indiana beat him up, but Ty Simpson was, he was kind of making Indiana, giving him fits with his ability to kind of spin out of stuff and kind of juke and get out. He's a little bit like that. Kind of reminds me of Peyton Ramsey a little bit in that way. If you remember Peyton Ramsey, maybe not like a super athlete, but was so good at like just, escaping pressure, getting out of the pocket, making throws. So I would put Hoover. I think his stats were really. I watched it. I didn't think his O-line was any good. In the 15-minute highlight tape I saw a lot of pressure, especially right into his face, and that's the worst kind of pressure for a quarterback. So I didn't think his O-line was that great. Again, it's an air raid, so you're throwing the ball probably like 70-75% of the time. I mean, you're basically running it just maybe to give your receivers a breather for a play. I mean, that's it's a quality offense if you can get the right guys, but I mean it's you're putting your quarterback in a lot of harm's way a ton. That's not going to happen in Indiana. And like I said, I think the fourth throws will be coached out of him. But this isn't a statue. I know his stats may look like that. I don't think that'll be the case. He'll be able to move around. He makes good throws. He can make throws off platforms. So scrambling out one way or the other. So I'm not worried about the mobility at all. He is definitely more mobile than Rourke. I mean, as far as Fernando, I mean, he's probably similar. They're a little bit different. I mean, Fernando's, I wouldn't call him like real shifty, but he's real good at putting his foot in the ground and go. You saw it in the Rose Bowl. He got some good runs, putting his foot in the ground, go north and south. I think Hoover's a little bit more shifty. Like I said, he kind of reminds me of Ramsey in that way. Peyton Ramsey for IU fans.
That's great. Ward, anything else on Hoover?
Well, I just think about sort of his size, right? And at 6'2", we were spoiled by Mendoza. You look at a lot of the prototypical quarterbacks in the NFL; they're more 6'4", 6'5". At the college level, at the Big Ten level, is 6'2" a concern? Obviously, Alberto came in at that size and did some good stuff in cleanup time, but that's a little bit different story when it's your starting quarterback.
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're always a concern of, can guys get your ball get batted down a little bit more? But to me, it's not a big deal. Fernando, even though he was taller, he kind of has a 3/4 motion, so he actually throws from a little bit lower arm slot. Hoover, I think, is a little bit, he's kind of got a little bit more like a baseball type, and that would be from, obviously throwing a baseball and football is a little bit different, but there still are some similarities. So I'm not really worried about his size. He's got good enough size. There's been short guys who've been really good. Hey, Drew Brees was a heck of a quarterback, and I don't even know if he was 6 foot. I know he played at Purdue, but he was phenomenal. So I'm not too worried about that. I think he'll be fine. You'd obviously like him to be 6'5". Rourke was a tall guy. Obviously, Fernando was tall, but that to me is not a big deal. I haven't gone through and looked to see how many balls he had batted down, but I'm guessing probably not a ton. I think he'll be fine size wise.
It's funny because there's nothing to really be frustrated with Fernando, but I did see him, he got plenty of balls batted down at the line, maybe because of that 3/4 motion that you're talking about. And even though he has 6'5". All right, let's move on. I'll take the other head of the two-headed beast. This is a guy that when we played Michigan State earlier, I was like, can we get this guy? Nick Marsh. I mean, I was ecstatic when we were interviewing Angelo Pizzo for the podcast that he will come on after our interview with you. Mm-hmm. And Angelo broke the news to us during the interview that Nick Marsh committed, which started the barrage of commitments, and we just went crazy. What do we have in Nick Marsh?
I mean, 2 years ago, Indiana goes up to East Lansing. Remember, they hadn't really trailed all season. They fall behind 10-0. He made he's a true freshman, made an unbelievable catch on the sideline on their touchdown drive, and then I think he caught the touchdown pass. And I just remember thinking, man, this guy is really freaking good. And listen, I love Elijah Surratt, and he's going to play in the NFL, and I think he's going to play in the NFL for 8 to 10 years. But Nick Marsh, from a physical, like athletic standpoint, we're talking about another level. Now he's got a lot to live up to because Surratt's phenomenal, as good as a receiver as Indiana's ever had in my lifetime. So I'm not trying to say, but I mean, this kid could be a first round pick next year. I think he could be a first round pick in the what would be the 27 NFL draft. I think he is big time, and this is a guy that when you started seeing Michigan State season go sideways, I mean, even if they wouldn't have fired, what's his name, Jonathan Smith or whatever, I think he still goes in the portal because he wasn't being developed. And people around him had to tell him that, like, you need to go somewhere else, whether it be Indiana or anywhere, because he's too good. He was not being developed good enough, and he's going to be. I mean, remember, Kurt Cignetti was a wide receivers coach when they had Julio Jones, Alabama, for Nick Saban. So he knows how to coach position. Mike Shanahan is an outstanding wide receivers coach. And then you've got these other guys. He is going to get high-level coaching. He's going to get a chance to he's going to be put a chance to really, really be successful. And here's the thing. He doesn't need to go out and get 1,200 yards or whatever it may be. Look at Indiana. I mean, guys, the ball spread around, and these guys are all getting talked about as being, pretty high draft picks in the NFL. The NFL will take notice of you if you go out there and perform. You don't have to put a bunch of stats on the board. And I don't know what the stats will be, but I'm telling you, and if Omar Cooper, fingers crossed, he comes back and you got Charlie Becker on one side and Nick Marsh on the other side and Charlie Becker down the middle. I mean, listen, I'll get some rosaries for the opposing defenses and pray for them because that's all they got.
Besides just his physical attributes of he's 6'3" and he's at a whole other level, what do you see with him? Like, are his hands great? What's he like at separation? How's his route running? Some of those characteristics that end up creating a great overall receiver.
Oh yeah, he's an athletic guy with good speed. Hands. I mean, like I said, the games that I saw him play that true freshman year 2 years ago, he made an unbelievable catch on the sideline when he was well covered. So big catch race. He's 6'3", so he's got length. Just throw the ball up to him, kind of like Surratt in that way, or Charlie Becker in that way. So really good athlete. I don't know what his 40 time is. I would guess it's pretty darn good.
4.38. 4.38.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow. I would have guessed in the 4.4s, but that's like elite. That's elite if you're 6'1", 200. He's 6'3", 203. So I mean, yeah, this is. I mean, listen, Josh Hoover is a really good get. This might be the biggest get in the portal for Indiana, just because we're talking about a guy who could, like I said, be a first-round pick in the 27 NFL draft playing in this system.
Is Nick Marsh the best player Indiana has ever recruited? Like, got a commitment from? Is he in that conversation?
Are you talking about ratings or just because of his ability?
Yeah, I'm not talking about the ratings. I'm talking about ability-wise. Is this the best player Indiana has brought to Bloomington? He's
pretty close. He's pretty close. I will say this, and I know it didn't work out, and he had the injuries. Michael Penix was super, super talented. Super talented. You're talking about a guy who played center field at a high school in Tampa, Florida, in high school. He was throwing like in the 90s. He ran track. I mean, we all saw his arm. He could throw the ball through a car wash and it come out dry. So, I mean, talent-wise, I stood behind Joe Burrow at a camp when he was going in between his junior senior year in Ohio and saw him throw a football 10 feet in front of me. But Michael Penix, the way the ball came off his hand was incredible. But I know it's different positions, so it's apples, oranges. But as far as this position, I mean, it'd be tough. It'd be tough to find anybody more talented. Cody Latimer is pretty talented, but I think this guy's got him beat. And I'm really excited. About halfway through the season, I was like, man, I hope he goes in the portal because I think he'd be perfect at IU. And he did, and it worked out. And it's, it's so great. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch him at Indiana. It's probably only going to be 1 year. So it's going to be like Fernando or some of these other guys. Enjoy it. But you know what? It's going to be a fun year, I believe.
You got another one on Marsh? I got one more question about Marsh.
Yeah, but I'll just tag mine on Marsh and then move on to the next one after yours.
Okay. This isn't exactly about Marsh. It's about Indiana. But the word was coming out, like if you read online, was Notre Dame was in prime position to get him. He's from Detroit, a little closer at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, obviously, the history. And then the word was that he had 2 visits set up, Indiana, and then he was going to go right to Notre Dame. And he does not go to Notre Dame for the visit. What world are we in right now, Matt?
And they're melting down. I didn't go to their board, but people from our side have. And I guess it's just a total meltdown. And I just, they always talk about NFL free agency. When you get like one of the top free agents in your building, like the first day the guys can go visit, don't let them out of your building. And Indiana didn't let him out of the building. Like they got him committed and signed and all that kind of stuff. And kudos to Cignetti and all the guys there. I mean, listen, CJ Carr is a good quarterback. Going to Notre Dame would have been a good decision too. But I think it's hard, and obviously I'm biased, but I mean, like, he just saw what Elijah saw. He saw it firsthand, and maybe that helped. Maybe seeing it in Indiana, and being in the same conference and paying attention. And obviously, like I said, he saw it up close two times, once the past 2 years. He saw what Sarah did. He saw what Omar Cooper did. And you're right. Detroit's been a real recruiting hotbed for Notre Dame over the years. They've gotten a lot of good players from there. So yeah, it's nuts. I mean, if this is a dream, I hope I never wake up, because it's so much fun.
Well,
all right, Ward.
And also, of course, the Bloomington ladies smoke the ladies from South Bend. So
that's fair.
We will tag it with Nick Marsh in that, reading some more stuff about him in the aftermath of this big announcement, echoing something you said about Josh Hoover. Good dudes. And I think we've been spoiled rotten with how great the guys on this team are as human beings. And it makes us just enjoy and be that much more proud of these Hoosiers, knowing they're good dudes. And it's got to be a huge part of the secret sauce that's making Indiana what it is right now. So it was just great to hear, especially with these couple headliners, good vibes around them as human beings. And we'd expect nothing less from Coach Cig and his staff. So in the spirit of being as juvenile and sophomoric as possible, I'm going to have you talk about our running back, Turbo Richard.
Well, first of all, I mean, if you're Indiana, don't you got to print T-shirts that say Turbo Dick?
Yes.
I mean, don't you have to? Like you absolutely have to. Played on a really bad team, unfortunately. Kind of like Lee Beebe the year before. Played on a poor UAB team. Now, obviously, it's a different level. Really good receiver out of the backfield. He's short, 5'8", but 207. So, I need to watch a little bit more film on him. But he seems like a guy who's built like almost like a fire hydrant. You know what I mean? Like short and stout. So looks like he's got some pretty good speed. The one thing Indiana has done an exceptional job at in the couple of years that Cignetti's been here out of the portal is recruiting running backs. Obviously, they knew Kaelon Black and they knew Tyson Lawton. They brought in Justin Ellison last year. He was great. And obviously, Roman Hemby has been phenomenal. And Lee Beebe was playing great when he got hurt. It's a shame that he got hurt, but he can come back, and he still would have 2 years. So, but I expect him to come in and be like a lot of the guys. He's probably going to look really similar to what we've seen at running back. They're all kind of the same, not exactly, but they're pretty similar. They're well coached. Coach Miller there, the running backs coach, a young guy, does a phenomenal job. So, and like I said, Indiana doesn't throw the ball a bunch to their running backs, but if they need to, this is a guy who definitely you could throw the ball to. Obviously, you can hand it off to him. So another great addition. I mean, I expect him to be in that rotation and be one of the top three guys getting the ball next year.
Do you think the three guys will be Kobe Martin, Lee Beebe, and Turbo Dick?
Right now, I mean, I won't be shocked if they add another guy just to get a little bit more depth. Because after those, and listen, I love Kobe Martin, and they like Kobe Martin, but after those three guys, now you're going down to Sean Quono and J-Ron Campbell, who will be coming in, in the 26th or in the 26th high school class. So, and we've seen it. Lee Beebe got hurt. A running back's position, when you carry the ball, you get hit on every single time, Now, hopefully you can break some, but I mean, you're getting pounded and you're getting tackled by defensive linemen and linebackers. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go. They had another running back in, Raleek Brown. They just kind of decided to go a different direction. I think the money and just they I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I just felt like they felt like it maybe wasn't the best fit for the money. So. But I don't have any other names, but I wouldn't be shocked if they don't go get another veteran guy just to give him a little bit more depth.
All right, I'm going to go to the other side of the ball. We've been talking about offense. We added several guys, several linemen, several defensive linemen, and I am not, I've said this many times, I'm not a expert when it comes to football. So 247 calls all these guys edges on line, but I know that they're not all the same. But I want to start with the guy that I think is most interesting because I think there might be a higher ceiling for him because of some injuries and stuff he's dealt with. But talk to me about the Notre Dame transfer, Josh Burnham, who I've read about that people like rave about. If he could stay healthy, this guy could be a difference maker. What do we got in Josh Burnham?
Yeah, 6'4", 260. It sounds like they really wanted to keep him, they didn't want him to go. But I think this could be kind of like a Coogan situation where he was going to play, but maybe now Coogan, when you're on the O-line, if you're not starting, then you're probably not playing very much. But I think he just wanted a place where he can maybe showcase himself. He's got 1 year left. Supposed to be pretty good against the run. Athletic guy. He's a big time recruit. Like he had offers from everybody. I think he's from Traverse City, Michigan. Offers from Bama, Ohio State, like all these big time schools. So, this could be. This could. I don't want to put. This could be like a Stephen Daly type deal. Now, obviously, different situation. Daly came from a bad program. He's coming from Notre Dame, but maybe where he comes in and he's been pretty good in his college career, but he explodes in his senior year. So. I think he'll be a strong side for Indiana. When you say edge, they have the strong side DN guy, which is kind of like which was Daly and Wyatt, and then you have what they call the stud position, which is what Kamara was playing until recently when they flipped him back over. But like what Ndukwe played, where they kind of stand him up. It looks like he's like almost like a sprinter. He'll kind of stand up. So that won't be him. I don't think. He'll be more on the strong side DN side. So I know we'll talk about the other DNs. Major kudos to Buda Williams, Brian Haynes. I'm sure Pat Kuntz, even though he coaches D tackles involved, DNs are incredibly. It's like the NFL draft. It's like anything. DNs are really, really hard to find. Same thing in high school recruiting. They're really hard to get. And I think their goal was to get 3, and they got 3. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they go try to get 1 more, but they have really shored up the DN spot, which was going to be a major need when you lose Kamara. Obviously, White and Daly were going to gone no matter what, but they're out, obviously. You had to go get some guys, and they got 3 dudes, I think, who can really play.
Just to take a quick sidestep to the Rose Bowl, because we talked to you about it beforehand, and since we're talking about edges right now, what did you see that Bryant Haynes did to make up for the loss of Stephen Daly, schematically, personnel-wise, in the Alabama game?
Well, they played. I saw Landuno at the edge a lot, and it almost was like at times looked like a 3-3-5, which is what they've done this year. 3 down linemen, and then you have your linebackers, and you'll walk them up. I saw a lot what you saw all year. He would show something pre-snap and do something different post-snap. There were times that you guys probably saw Aiden Fisher. The A gap's the gap on each side of the center in between the guards. You'd see Fisher walk up, and then he would go backwards, and Hardy would be behind him, and Hardy or Jones would come forward. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to confuse the quarterback. It looks like he's coming, but then that guy comes. And a lot of guys do this, but Indiana and Brian Haynes are really, really good at it. So it did what they did. I don't think it was anything crazy. I think they did a lot of what they've been doing all year. And Ndukwe got more playing time, and he would go to the stud position, and they moved Kamara to the other side. And that's where Kamara played last year and had a great season. So it's not like it's new for him. So it was a great scheme. They're going to have to do it again this week because obviously you're playing a really talented team. But I have no doubt. I mean, this defense is playing at an unreal level. I mean, they beat the bejesus out of Alabama. I mean, just beat the you-know-what out of them. And Oregon's going to be a tough test. But, I have a lot of confidence that this team is going to come out and play great Friday night down in Atlanta.
All right, Ward, you're up.
Let's hit another edge. Let's just go for the biggest dude we got so far. Chidi Obiazor, the edge from Kansas State, 6'6", 275.
Yeah, we can do chitty bang bang here.
Yes, great, love it.
He's Alan True from one of our recruiting guys came on and said he was a raw guy in high school, like a big raw athlete. So, and I think he's got 2 years. I think he's a redshirt junior. Yeah, I think he's got 2 years. I'm sorry, guys. These guys, all the names are kind of
I get it.
Get merged in my head. But man, 6'6", 275. They've never had this kind of size at DN. And this is a guy that you might be able to, on certain situations, maybe you kick him inside in certain packages or something. You want to kick him inside, and maybe you want to get some more pass rushers, like it's a pass rush thing. You want to put him at that 3 tech where Landino plays. This is a versatile guy. I think he'll be at strong side DN most of the time, but I'm really excited. I'm guessing he's got long arms, which is so big and on line play because you want to be able to get your hands on the other guy before he gets his hands on you. I think this guy's going to be a lot of fun to watch over the next 2 years. Buda Williams and these guys working with him, but I'm excited about Chidi. I think he's got a chance I think his upside. And I know when you're talking portal guys, they're all kind of hitting their ceiling because they're older. But I think there's some room here. I think he's still got more of a ceiling. And this is the guy that in the next couple of years, we might say, wow, he ended up being one of the 3 or 4 best players in this portal class.
Wow. Well, let's stick with his teammate from Kansas State. Another edge, the third of the 3 that you were talking about, Toby Osunsanmi.
Yeah, he missed half the season last year. I don't know what his injury was, but he was leading the team in tackles for loss and sacks. He's ranked now. Ratings are what they are, but I want to say he's the fourth best edge in the 247 rankings, and he missed half the season. 6'3", 6'4", around 250. Another athletic guy, kind of a carbon copy of Burnham size wise, really athletic. And listen, at K-State, who is it? Chris, what's the guy's name? Kleinman. Terrific coach. He retired. Great coach. Was a great coach at the FCS level for a number of years. So this is a guy who's been coached really well in the fundamentals. I guarantee. I don't follow K-State, but I guarantee he's been well coached. Another, like I said, these are high level guys. These are guys that could play anywhere in the country, and to get them at the position that you really needed to hit the jackpot on, and to do it in the first weekend. Like if you would have got one or two of them, I would have been like, hey, this is a good start. To basically fill your DN needs in the first weekend is just absolutely phenomenal. So like again, this is a guy will probably be more on the stud side. Well, yeah, probably be more on the stud side, kind of rotating there within Duke way. Maybe you could move him to their side at times. In certain packages, but athletic guy, explosive, and another really key piece for Buda Williams, Brian Haynes in that defensive front.
When you talk to anybody regarding the NFL, the value positions, obviously QB over everything, but then it's really an edge now, right? It's to somebody to get after the quarterback on the other side. And then you start talking about wide receivers quickly after that. And when you start to consider the personnel we're losing, who we need to bring in, the efficiency, the effectiveness of the staff is once again rearing its beautiful head. Let's get into the defensive backs. We'll start with let's go with the safety out of Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo out of Cincinnati, because that's where my wife went to high school. Jaquan Sanks.
Yeah, actually, I got to know Jaquan. He was being recruited, so it would have been the summer of 23. So it would have still been Tom Allen before the coaching change. He got offered by the previous staff. I messaged with Jaquan. I want to say he was from Alabama. His hometown on Cincinnati site says Columbus, Georgia, but it's like Phoenix City, Alabama. I'm guessing maybe it's right there on the border between Alabama and Georgia. Athletic kid, came in, and he was like one of the first. I can't remember who it was, but he's one of the first starters at safety for Cincinnati in like a number of years. So he's played. I think he played 24 games last year. Started about half of them. I don't know where he sees. To me, I think he kind of reminds me of Devin Boykin. So maybe he comes in and kind of plays that 5th DB, that kind of nickel role, which Boykin has been. And not to go, Boykin was so good in the Rose Bowl, so good. I mean, he's been so good all year. But I think he comes in and maybe kind of plays that role. I could see him and kind of that third safety in their defense. But another good get, and another guy who's got more than 1 year. It's it's tough. You can't you gotta. It's hard to go get guys with multiple years out of the portal, but it's nice if you can, just because you don't have to keep replacing them every single year. So another guy that's got a couple seasons left, and should come in. I think he'll be competing for a starting job. Most likely, and at the very least, will give you really great, a rotational guy at safety.
It's funny you mentioned Boykin, and he's certainly not gotten as much shine as he probably deserves. But then you start going through the defense, and you're like, for the defense to be this good, actually every single starter and the main rotational players have to be great. You don't get to be this great of a defense if you have any weak links, because then that would be getting exposed. And so I think Boykin's a perfect example of somebody on, any other team, he might be like the guy or one of the couple guys, but he almost gets lost in the shuffle here.
Yeah, and I said on our board, he's low key, and by low key, I mean people aren't talking about him. He's had a great year, an absolutely phenomenal year. But I mean, Lewis Moore has been awesome, Mari Farrell, D'Angelo Pons. So it's easy to get kind of lost in the shuffle, but he's been great.
All right, so Lewis Moore is a safety, right?
Yeah,
and maybe besides getting Mendoza and Daly, Lou Moore's the decision, the lawsuit, the injunction, him playing turned out to be maybe the top 3 stories for Indiana football this year, because this dude was awesome and almost had an interception on Alabama's first drive in the game, but knocked the pass down. Has just been a stud for us. Let's talk about Preston Zachman from Wisconsin. Is Preston Zachman a guy who is slotted to kind of replace Lou Moore?
I think he could be. He's going to be in his 7th year. I think Barry Alvarez might have recruited him to Wisconsin. No, I've messaged with Preston. He seems like a good dude. Like I said, in his 7th year, he's had some injury issues. But if you go by PFF and you pick PFF for what it's worth, Pro Football Focus, who does the grades, he has been like he's been like the highest graded DB the last few years. Does it really good tackler as far as their tackling grades go. Smart guy. Luke Fickle talked about how he was a leader. I mean, this is I mean, it's so different, but it's almost, he kind of sounds like Pat Cooganish, but on the defensive side of the ball and in the secondary, just like a veteran guy who's really smart, understands the game. Biggest thing is hopefully you can keep him healthy this year. But I really like to pick up. And then at Wisconsin, so I know that they've not been great. What's interesting is I think he was actually at linebacker for a little bit, and Bostad for like a couple years was the linebackers coach at Wisconsin. I think he might have been his coach for like a couple years.
Oh, wow.
Before, and I think they might have moved him to safety. So, but anyways, he told me he's really close to Riley Nowakowski, and Riley had obviously nothing but phenomenal things to say about his time in Indiana. And I think Riley might have posted something on Instagram or Twitter when it came out that he was, coming to Indiana, congratulating them. So, I think this is a really, high character. People are gonna look, oh, he's a 3-star. This is not a big fancy. This is the kind of guys you win with. These are those foundational guys, even if they're only for a year. These are the guys that you win with, that come in and they have the intangibles, and they're also really good players.
How significant is it that we're not talking about the players we're losing, that we're not talking about the players going into the portal from the Indiana side?
Because so far, none of them shocked me. Like, I would say the biggest name is probably Amarian Knighton, who came in this year from Northern Illinois. And it was one of the top corners, and he just had, it's just whatever. He got hurt. Sometimes it's just not a guy's fault. You get banged up. Same thing with Mekhi Jackson. Mekhi Jackson gets hurt in spring ball, like a hamstring, misses a lot of spring, and he just falls behind. And, Indiana does not play guys because of who you are or where you were from. If you fall behind, you got to catch back up. You're going to have to, if somebody's taking your spot, you got to go get it back. They're just not going to give it back to you. You get Wally Pitts, you're going to have to go back and get it. And so sometimes it's just bad luck. And I hope Amir Knight has a great career wherever he ends up going. But like I said, none of these guys so far were contributors. Now, will that be the case going forward? I mean, I guess I don't, is there anybody, could there be a surprise or two? I guess there could be. I would have thought it would happen by now. So I'll be really interested to see who goes in the portal whenever Indiana sees, well, after it ends and on the 19th in Miami when they're holding up the national championship trophy. It'll be interesting to see. Listen, guys, not to go for whoever wins the game Friday. In my opinion, this is the national title game. I think the winner of the game Friday in Atlanta is the national champion. I think they're the two best teams left in the Final Four. But anyways, none of the guys surprised me. And nothing against them. They weren't contributors, and they want to go play. And I don't blame them. You only have a certain amount of time to play college football. None of those guys are probably NFL guys. Go play. Go find somewhere to play for a year or two, and then obviously move on with your life. But I don't blame the guys for finding a new spot.
Yeah, I guess to me, it's just I haven't heard of any of these guys, or maybe I did and I forgot because they weren't on the radar at all this season. Yeah. And that, who knows, that you do want to have those guys waiting in the wings that maybe you're not really aware of, who are putting in the reps and knowing the system and ready to step in case of an injury or their turn is next season. But to me, I just kind of looked down the list as you keep it updated and be like, don't know, don't care.
And to your point, Ward, I think the key is, it doesn't seem like we're losing anybody that Cig wanted to keep badly.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I would he have taken him back? I'm guessing he would have. I don't know. That sometimes there's conversations they have a kind of, I don't want to say come to Jesus, but kind of like, hey, if you want to play, you might want to look at other options.
Right.
If you want to get on the field, it's probably not going to happen here. You could stay, but you're going to be probably more of a practice guy. And if you want to get on the field, then you might want to look around. So I don't know if they had that with some of these guys. And a couple of them are walk-ons. And Aiden Cannon's a walk-on. I think Finn Walters went in the portal. He's a walk-on. So a couple of these guys are walk-ons. Andrew DePape was a 4-star guy, went to Michigan State, came to Indiana as a walk-on. Him and his brother both went in the portal. So, they haven't lost. They've lost very, very deep depth guys. Like I'm talking like third string and below.
The last question I have for you, because it had been a topic of conversation. Now it's definitively answered that Josh Hoover is coming here to be the starting quarterback. I've heard nothing to indicate it's going to be a battle between him and Alberto for the starting job. Alberto's still just a redshirt freshman. Do you have any indication of how that's being handled, if that's at all caused any kind of uncomfortableness, or is Alberto good to kind of continue to bide his time in the hopes for maybe an opportunity after Hoover's time is done?
Well, my guess is that I know that they really want to keep Alberto, and there was some concern that if they went into the portal, how would he react to that? Because they really do like him. I think my guess is when you go get a Josh Hoover for 1 year, what you're saying to me is you think he needs one more year, just a little bit more seasoning before you're ready to hand the reins to him, and trust him, to lead your team. I think Alberto Mendoza is a starting quarterback in a P4 school. But like you said, great point. He's a redshirt freshman, and he has looked good when he's played. But again, it's a lot different playing 42-10 than 10-10, or whatever it may be. And I'm not saying he can't play at 10-10. We just don't know because we haven't seen it. But I like Alberto. I really hope he sticks around. But I'm sure listen, he's a competitive kid. He thinks he's better than his brother, which he should. But I was told by a coach who coached in Indiana, has coached other places before, and if you want to, he was at a different school, and they were really, really good. If you want to maintain and sustain greatness, even if you have a Heisman Trophy winner or an All-American or whatever it is, your job as a recruiter, as a coach, is to go find a guy better than him. Now, it doesn't mean that guy's going to come in and be better than him, but you're trying to find guys who can beat out your really good players, because competition is how you keep getting better. And that's what they're doing. And they're bringing in competition. And you're going to have to, Indiana's gotten to the point, this is like an Ohio State and Alabama under Saban. You're going to have to be elite and really good and come to work every day and be an absolute ass kicker if you want to get on the field for this team.
Ward, do you want to do the last guy?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see anybody else.
One more. It's the latest commitment, and maybe the most interesting one, because what we've heard over and over again from Cignetti is production over potential. And we got a tight end commitment, Brock Schott from Miami, who has 4 years of eligibility left. It's basically getting a high school kid.
Yep.
He has not played, at the Power 4 level or the mid-major level. What it's for me, when I see that, I go, well, this kid must have something special that Cig would make the deal to get him, to bring him in. What are we looking at with Brock Schott?
Well, he's an in-state kid. He's from Leo, which is up by Fort Wayne. Was one of those. He's a freak. He's 6'3", 245, tremendous athlete, can really run. Was a great defensive end in high school. He's going to be a tight end for Indiana. I think this is one of those cases where they knew him. He was an in-state kid. They offered him in high school, so they already had an idea about him. And this is probably the one exception to his production over, potential kind of, guideline that he has when he goes and recruits these guys. The other thing interesting is they got a lot of young tight ends. They brought in 2 this year. You got 3 more coming in 26, and now him. So you got a lot of guys in the same class. Now, a couple of them, like Parker Elmore, he could maybe move to defense. But yeah, it's interesting, and they do need a veteran. They need an older guy, and I still think they'll go out and get another guy who's played, kind of like a Noah Kowski, or they brought in Zach Portman with them, a guy who's had some experience, and they can go out there and give him snaps. But to me, unless you're going to bring in 2 more, which I think it would be, I'd be a little bit surprised if they brought in 3 portal tight ends. I guess it's possible. I think you're counting on this guy to come in and help and at least get on the field some. They basically only played 2 tight ends. James Bauman was a 3rd tight end, and he barely played this year. It was pretty much, and it was really towards the end of the season. The Rose Bowl, Holden State played like 11 snaps. Riley Nowakowski they leaned on him in that game, and I think they'll probably do that the next couple games. So, but I think you were expecting this guy to at least probably give you 15, 20 snaps a game next season. But he's freakishly athletic, and this is the kind of guy. You coach him up. This could be a big play guy. This could be another guy in 3 or 4 years. We're like, wow, that was a heck of a get. He's a big time player. Like I said, Miami won him. A lot of schools won him. He had a lot of offers. So this is a little bit more of a gamble on the upside than what you see on film. And like you said, I think he had 2 catches for like 14 yards or something at Miami, or 20 something yards, whatever it was. So he basically didn't play. So yeah, it's an interesting take for Indiana, but I think you're at the position where. I don't see them doing this a bunch, but you built this program to where you can take a kid where maybe you don't know exactly what he's going to be, but you think that the upside is really, really good.
Right. Okay, so let's look to the future a little bit, because when you look at the portal haul so far, there are, it seems to be, two glaring omissions so far. And again, we're just a few days in, but
Yeah.
our offensive line, was basically voted offensive player of the game in the Rose Bowl, and
Yeah.
has been the reason that the running game has been so good, and a big reason why Fernando's been so good.
Yep.
We don't see any offensive linemen yet, and we're losing Aiden Fisher. Bones Jones is done, right?
No, he's got another year. He's redshirt
Oh,
junior.
Bones Jones. Okay, so he's got another year, but we're losing Aiden Fisher, so I don't see any linebackers on here. What about Elijah Hardy? Is he back?
Oh yeah, he's only a sophomore. He's got
Oh
2
my
more years.
God. I mean, I love it so much. So, but offensive line first and then linebacker. What do you see coming on offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a name or two. They haven't had anybody. They obviously didn't have anybody in for a visit. There's still plenty of time, and I think they'll get some guys. O-line that this is the toughest guy. Schools don't want to lose them because they're so hard to replace. But there'll be some guys that are in. There are some guys in the portal, and I'm sure I'll be shocked if they don't have a few alignment in their next group of visitors whenever that happens. I'll be a little bit surprised. I'm not saying I'll be concerned, but I will be. It'll be a little bit head scratching if there's not. If there's not more than at least 2 or 3 guys. I mean, we don't know what Carter Smith's going to do. As good as he's played, it's hard to see him coming back. I want people to think I'm saying sourced info. This is my gut call. It's hard to see him come back because he's played so good. I think the question on Carter Smith is he a tackle in the NFL? The length, does he have all the things that the NFL? I think he's an NFL lineman. I just don't know if he's an NFL tackle. So that'll be interesting. But they'll get some guys. They had a linebacker in this weekend, Owen Long, led the nation in tackles from Colorado State, 151 tackles. They really like him. He's from Whittier, California. You guys know, is that down by LA?
Yeah, it is.
Is
It's Southern California.
Okay, so he's from there. He went to Colorado State, played well for 2 years there. I heard he's going to Arizona State. I have heard that distance could be an issue, which I get, but then again, I don't get because, from what I've heard, kind of seen about him, he's like Jones and Fisher, incredibly instinctive. Got a nose for the ball. Obviously, 151 tackles. You obviously know what you're doing. So I think he'd be a really good fit in their defense. And they're in it. They're fighting. We'll see what happens with at Arizona State when I don't know when he's visiting. I would assume he's out there now, but I'm not sure on that. So, and I don't know if he's got any other visits lined up. So right now, that's the linebacker I know about. I think you need to get one because you got Jones and Hardy, and then it's a bunch of there's some guys that they're bringing in 3 rows. I mean, Jaden Williams, I think he's going to play. I'm not saying he's going to play a bunch, but I think he's going to be would have been like Byron Baldwin, but if he didn't get hurt, I think Williams is going to be a guy that you could see out there. He is going to be a fantastic player for Indiana, and the other linebackers are good too, but they've got some good young ones, but you'd like to have a veteran. I mean, Curt Cignetti is old school in that way. He likes older players because older players you can trust. Young players may have talent, but it's hard to trust them because they're young and they a lot of times they freelance and they don't, stay within what they're supposed to do.
Matt, obviously the athletic department, the president, everybody involved, and boosters, donors have ponied up to keep our coaches. From anything you've heard or not heard, does it seem like the faucet continues to be wide open when it comes to these portal players? Is it sort of a non-issue that we're getting the players we want because they're choosing Indiana as a good fit, and money's kind of not an issue because we're matching or coming close enough to what other big programs are doing?
Well, I mean, the number that's been thrown out for Hoover, I don't know if this is right or not, but I mean, Sorsby supposedly got $5 million. And Hoover is apparently at least in that neighborhood. I don't know if I don't know if he's across the street, but it sounds like he's at least in the same zip code. Let's put it that way. So I don't know. One of the questions I don't ask a lot of, when I talk to people is about money, just because I don't know. It's a little bit of an awkward. I want to know who's coming. I want to know who you're after. The money thing, if I find out, great. If I don't, so be it. It's not as big a deal to me. Rabbi always talks about the why doesn't matter to us. We need to know the what. Because, fans want to know the why, and I get it, but the why doesn't help me. I need to know the what. I need to know who you got coming in, who's top on your board, who are you after, so I can do my job better. But I don't get the sense that money's an issue. I mean, the guys they got to get these guys, these guys, I mean, Nick Marsh is going to he was going to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got money. I mean, these other guys could have gone other places. I don't think money is an issue. I'm not saying they can spend, and I don't say they're Texas Tech and then they got what's that guy's name, Cody, whatever his name is, who's
Oil
like
man.
who's just basically wiping his rear end with money. He's got so much of it. I don't know if they're there, but they are at a spot where I think they can be very competitive and keep this program elite.
All right. So you mentioned Owen Long. Can you give us another name or two of guys that are top of the hot board that we should be focused on over the next week or so?
Yeah, Xavier Gillum. He was a D tackle. That's another spot. That's the two spots where, and it's just the first weekend, but the two spots where you'd like to see some guys O line and in trenches, because you always want, and D tackle. They got the D ends, but now you need to get a couple of D tackles. They do have. You think Tucker will be back? Landino's back, but you got to replace. You got to get some depth there. So Xavier Gillum out of Penn State. I think he's a redshirt freshman, so I think he has 3 years left or 2 years,
Wow.
2 or 3. I can't remember. Good player. He went to Penn State. He was highly recruited. They really like him now. It's going to be a battle. He's supposedly going to be visiting Notre Dame and I think Tennessee. Joe, I think you pronounce it E-L. It's Hjelle from Tulsa, an older guy. He reminds me of I'm trying to think of his name. The guy they brought in from JMU last year. Was it the D tackle's only here for 1 year, like a 6-year player. Just one of those lunch pail guys, a good rotational guy, not going to blow anybody away with how he, like his, elite athleticism. Just a tough, hard-nosed guy. I think he'd be a 1-year dude. Now, he did go to JUCO for 2 years, and I don't know if he gets grandfathered into that rule that Lewis Moore was a part of, and Pavia and all those guys. So he may have a second year. I need to look into that. He's also going to visit. I know he's visiting LSU, and there's somebody else in there. I think Penn State, maybe. He was at Wisconsin Saturday. So I think he's got a couple more visits. I actually messaged with Joe and started out at a JUCO, like I said, then went to Tulsa and blew up this year. So he had a great visit. He got to watch the team practice yesterday, and he said that was a lot of fun. It was really cool to see them practice. I think that's it right there. It's probably those two guys.
What about that wide receiver that there was a lot of talk about Marsh and this other kid from Texas?
Parker Livingstone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they like him. I think they're kind of in wait and see mode. And some of this they may be waiting to see what Cooper does.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That may be part of what they're doing.
And
now,
don't we have some young guys there that we're going to get Tyler Morris back, right? Like hopefully
he's been practicing. Yeah, he's been practicing. Yeah, and I saw him in practice one of their last practice where they went to LA. I was there, and he didn't have a sleeve, nothing on his knee. Like you would never, and he looked good. Now he wasn't like, I don't think he's doing team stuff because he's not going to play. But I mean, he looked good running out there. You got Morris, you got LeBron Bond, who I think is going to be a terrific player.
Yeah.
Davion Chandler, who had the catch. I know it was Purdue, but he showed some serious speed. Now that they threw the kind of the bubble screen or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And he beat the guy around the corner. So those two guys, they're younger though, but I think I could see one more receiver. But I think they're, now the thing is, if you're waiting for Cooper and you go to the national championship, I don't know that Parker Livingstone's going to wait till the 20th or past that. So, and I don't blame him. He's got to make a decision. He can't wait around. When the music stops, you got to be in a chair. And, but he's a good player. He kind of reminds me, and maybe it's because, and I hate to, they're 6'4" white receivers. He reminds me of Becker when you watch him. Tall, athletic, can really run, goes up and high points the ball. So but I think they're waiting. I think they're kind of waiting to see what Cooper does, or at least get a feel for what Cooper might do before they make a move. They're okay with, if he goes somewhere else, they're okay with it. And if they are able to get him down the road, they'd be okay with that too. So it's kind of one of those things where it's wait and see.
Got it.
Well, I have one question looking even further to the future, and then I'm done. We'll let you get back to your life of doing more of this. Is it presumptuous or maybe just matter of fact to think that what we've done so far in the portal, and obviously there's more work to be done, but this is a really good start. When you combine that with what that's looking like, the roster for next year, with the reputation now cemented by Curt Cignetti and his staff, do you think we're looking at a preseason top 10 Indiana?
Well, I think so. I would like to see how the roster looks, but if they finish the portal the way they started it, I don't know why you wouldn't be preseason top 5. You're getting one of the best portal quarterbacks, because that's what people are going to look at. They were let's be honest. the people who rank them and who ranked them after last season and underrated them. They were like, what were they, like 20 something or I can't remember.
Yeah,
they
in
were
the
barely
20s,
in the top 25,
I think.
Yeah. So, and I was like, come on, that's ridiculous. They had a good roster. And I said it before the season. I told you guys, this roster on paper is better than the 24 team.
Yes.
But I thought it could be a tougher road. Now, obviously, they proved me wrong. And thankfully they did. But the schedule was tougher. I mean, they've got.
Yeah, you thought they were going to lose one game.
They've got arguably. Well, I thought more than that. You guys, are able to,
we sprinkled that
you
magic
played the
dust.
Jedi mind trick on me and get me to go out on the limb. But they had three of the best wins in college football: at Oregon, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and I know Alabama's not vintage, but they blew Alabama's doors off like they were, I don't know, Northwestern. You know what I mean? Like they blew their doors off. So they've got three good ones. To me, if you finish like you did or pretty close to how you started in the portal, I think this is a top 5 team preseason. I think at worst they're top 10, and if they're not, then it's just people are just never going to believe in Indiana. That's fine. Like Coach Cig said, we went out to LA. We stayed in the hotel. We kicked their ass. And we came home. Well, let's keep doing that. That's fine.
All right. Well, it's so good to have you on. We can always count on you also for some phrases that I have never heard before. I'm going to leave this one with he can throw the ball through a car wash and come out dry. That's the one that I walk away with on this one. I love it. This has got to be a blast for you. Will you be in Atlanta?
I will be.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Well, hopefully I will see you there, and then we'll all be together in Miami for the national championship.
Okay.
All
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, man. Keep up the great work.
And real quick, thank you guys so much for making it possible for me to come to the event. It was so awesome. It was so much fun. A couple of buddies, I had a guy the guy you gave the young boy you gave the towel to.
Yeah.
We were managers together at IU. He was one of my grooms. I knew he was coming out for the game. I didn't know he was going to be at this event. I had no idea that he had signed up for it. So, and I saw another friend that I went on spring break with in college years and years ago to Daytona Beach, who was there. He lives down in Florida. So thank you guys so much. And then I got to meet some people that, I only know their screen names. And then to see you guys again and to hang out with Eric's family was so much fun. So I cannot thank you guys enough for doing that. You didn't have to do it, and you were so generous, and it just meant the world to me. So I really, really appreciate it.
You deserved it, man. You absolutely deserve it.
100%.
We didn't get to party at Ward's house. That's the only disappointment.
Well, hey man, if Indiana keeps being the number 1 team in the country and playing in Rose Bowls, there'll be plenty more chances to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, let's make it a tradition.
Be good and safe travels to Atlanta.
Okay, you too, guys. Thanks so much.
That was a guest. That was a guest.
You know how some people say, like, when we talk to Tom Allen, even, talking to like Steve Aird, you get the feeling like you just want to run through a brick wall for him. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel after we talk to Weaver.
Well, especially this time. I mean, Weaver's always got good energy, but he's on that like Indiana crack right now.
Yeah. The good stuff. The good stuff. The blue. He's on the Indiana Crimson. That's what it's called on the street. The Crimson.
Right into our veins.
Yeah. Just awesome. All right. So we got our football fix as far as what's happening in the portal and what's coming in the future. And now to contextualize everything that's happened, let's talk to one of the great storytellers of all time.
Here comes our guest. Here comes our guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Hoosiers of all ages, it's not just our friend. It's not just one of the all-time great guests on this podcast. He's a legend within the Hoosier community and within the Hollywood community. Eric, who do we have back with us today?
I'm glad you said legend, because I was going to say we are speaking to a living legend, and it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to actually have that memorialized by the fact that he was named a living legend by the Indiana Historical Society in 2011. So it's official. He is a living legend. He was inducted into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame in 2013. He's received the Hall's Silver Medal Award, given in recognition of contributions to Indiana high school basketball by someone other than a high school player or coach. Of course, he is the writer of the 2 greatest sports movies ever, and I would say the greatest movie ever besides The Godfather. Sorry, I always got to keep The Godfather up there. But of course, Rudy and Hoosiers and many others. And I want to get into this. He is, I think, putting the finishing touches on a movie shot entirely in Bloomington called Someone Saved My Life. That is a autobiographical story that I cannot wait to get into and cannot wait to see. When you're talking about the greatest story in the history of sports, we are living through arguably that right now. And there is no better person to talk to than the greatest storyteller of all time, especially in the sports world. Please welcome back to the podcast, Angelo Pizzo.
Thank you very much.
So how are you? Let's start there.
Well, I feel like I'm on a high, just being part of this extraordinary ride. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it to Pasadena. I had my son use my ticket. He was my surrogate. Of course, all my friends, reported back to me. I could relive it or live it in time through photographs and videos, and then listen to your podcast yesterday. I had a personal matter I had to take care of that was very important to me, but I'm on to Atlanta, and can't tell you how many people have reached out to me in a lot of different guises. People I haven't heard from in years and years, and in one case, 25 years. And sometimes they are like, what's going on there? How do you explain this? It's like inquiries into this strange and unusual, inexplicable story. And at the same time, the amount of inquiries about me doing Hoosiers 2, the movie of it started with the Big Ten championship, but then when Coach Cig said in the interview, it'll make a hell of a movie, my phone just burned up that night. It's been crazy. And I actually have had a number of real offers and actual inquiries from companies. And I know that if I'm getting that kind of attention, that poor Jeremy Gray is probably inundated by all sorts of, and the Mendoza family is probably inundated by all sorts of people wanting the rights and so on. So it's been a lot. I mean, I have a couple of takes on it I'll share with you later, but or now, whenever you want me to.
I say let's jump into it, because it has been, because of Signetti putting it on Front Street with, it would make a great movie. You and I texted a little bit about it. What is...
Well, I just want to set the table a little bit more too with Angelo. Obviously, you not being able to be there, but being there more than in spirit. I came home and watched the broadcast like so much many of us did, and Herb Street's talking about Hoosiers and the way that's what people think of. And the night before, I was watching the CNN, ball drop, and they're doing the in memoriam, and what do they choose for Gene Hackman but Hoosiers? And it's so beautiful that however many years later, this is still such an important movie in like the mythos of this country, and what the Heartland's all about, and that it's coming to the forefront yet again. And your beautiful work alongside David is just something that is, in the case of Gene, unfortunately with him passing this year, but that's still what people remember him more than anything for. So to set that table now in 2026, how are we going to move forward with the next great Hoosier sports movie?
Well, that's a really good question, but let me kind of cut to my take on this and cut to the chase. And one is that I don't see this as a dramatic feature film at this juncture, at this time. It's too recent, it's too raw. The reality will trump any kind of recreation of it to such an extent that it will look like, Brian Dennehy playing Bob Knight.
Great call. Great callback.
We don't want to see, people don't understand how hard it is to recreate an actual sports team, especially football players. I mean, how are you going to cast that offensive and defensive line with actors? And of course, the significant roles. I mean, uh, Fernando's such a unicorn in so many ways. I don't think you could actually get somebody. You couldn't find an actor who could throw a football, who could talk like him. Everything about it would be just impossible to do a dramatic recreation of this unless there was a lot of time, a lot of distance. I mean, one of the reasons that we were able to pull off the Milan story was that we didn't call it the Milan story. We created our own characters. And it was also enough time away from the actual event that it was introducing the story to a new audience, and that's important too. I think the experience is so tactile in terms of either being there or watching on television that to try to recreate it is at this juncture would be impossible. Now, having said that, I think it would make one hell of a documentary, and I'm sure a documentary will get made. Um, and one producer who has a tremendous amount of credits, and not in the documentary, but in the kind of miniseries Netflix world, contacted me with, I think, what a great idea, but I don't think we could ever pull it off. And he was fascinated, as I've always been fascinated, with what makes Coach Cignetti different. What is the secret sauce? What is it about him that he can do this and every other coach who aspires to do this can't do? And I have somebody who I'm very close to is in the inside of the program, and he's given me a few kind of like ideas and tips, but it's clearly a combination of a lot of things. But I think the only way to do a documentary is to follow him every minute of every day during like a game week and watch him interact with his coaches, with his players, how he preps for the game.
Drive with him at 4 a.m. to the office, like all that
Exactly.
kind of stuff.
All
Yeah.
of those things. However, I don't think in a million years he would allow that. I mean, the one thing that he does not want is distraction. He's very big on that. And I think that's true in his own life. And it's not like I think that he needs to guard, that he has I don't think he says anything that's secret. Let me point out one thing that my friend said about what makes him different. Because I just said, I asked this question. He said, I can give you a number of things, but here's the most important thing. In terms of his dedication and his desire to compete, and he knows that the secret to a winning team is getting great players to play the way you want them to, and to create a team that's connected, and that you recruit the appropriate body type for the appropriate position. And he said, nobody, and I mean nobody, this guy's been with every Indiana coach, by the way, for the last 40 years. And he said, and going through all the recent coaches, he loved Tom Allen and all the way back and so on and so forth, and Mallory and so on. And he said, the time between spring practice and fall is a dead period where you can't really do much. You can't really talk to players. But do you know what Coach Cig does? He's in his office 8 to 10 hours a day watching film for 2 months. He said, I've never seen a coach come even remotely close to that. 10-hour, probably 10 times more film watching than any other coach he's worked with in 45 years. And I think it's that little bit of edge. And he watches 2 different kinds of film, okay? And his goals are in 2 different areas. One is to find, watching high school players, but also, possible portal players, to look to assemble his kind of team, the kind of team that works best for him. And, a lot of this conversation about, uncut gems, the low star kids that he makes 5-star kids and so on and so forth. I mean, it's all true. Let's face it. And that's the way in which he has been successful, is getting those JMU players that were not recruited well and taking that same approach on the next level.
Angelo, don't you think
he did start at Alabama though too?
Yeah, I was going to say though, don't you think like as you talk about like the diamonds in the rough, the uncut gems, that that's who he is? You know what I mean?
I think to some extent that's true, but I also think that he recognized and realized when he went to Indiana, Pennsylvania, his first head coaching job, that he was going to come remotely close to. By the way, Nick Marsh just committed to Indiana.
Oh,
Yes!
breaking news!
Yes!
Angelo with
Yes!
the breaking news. Yeah.
Wait a
Breaking news
minute!
here. Yes.
Wait a minute, Angelo Pizzo, greatest storyteller in Hollywood history, is also breaking news on the podcast.
Look out, Adam
Phenomenal.
Schefter. Oh, that is wonderful.
Oh my God. We got to just take a moment. This dude, this is the guy that I wanted before the portal even opened. This guy is a stud. He is a tall, athletic, strong, got multiple years left, by the way. Now, probably he won't have multiple years because he'll go to the NFL. But this is a superstar that we beat out Notre Dame for. He didn't even go visit Notre Dame.
This was my one. I agree with you. My number one wish on my wish list for the portal was this guy. He's an NFL wide receiver.
And put him next to Charlie Becker, who's coming into his own as a star. And by the way, Omar Cooper may be back.
He may be. Yep.
I mean, this is remarkable.
It really is. It really is.
Oh my God.
It does dovetail into the point you're making, Angelo, about uncut gems and what Cignetti's been able to do. One has to imagine somebody like Marsh is still got the kind of character. He's still the sort of team first, it's all about winning kind of player. For Cig, I think would clearly rather have a 3-star who's about the right things than a 5-star who isn't. But you got to imagine this kid and some more guys we're going to get moving forward are both. They both have the physical attributes at the high end and the mental and the team first mentality.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine who was a high school coach who brought up something I thought was really interesting. He said that the one thing about getting 2- and 3-star kids and developing them and finding the uncut gems is that they don't have an attitude, and they really do want to get better. They do really want to be part of the team, and he finds those kind of kids. He said it's much more difficult to coach 5-star and 4-star kids because they've always been the main people. They've always 100%. Been the guys. And even though they might say the right words, if they're not getting their targets, if they're wide receivers, if they're not getting their plays, that can seep over into even though a coach could have the best interest in creating a great culture and his team, there's a lot of disgruntlement from 5- and 4-star players that aren't playing.
Yeah.
Now think about when we played Ohio State. They had 9 5-star players and 48 4-star players. We had 0 5-star players and 7 4-star players. Now, there are some unhappy people on that sideline. I don't care whether that Ohio State's winning or not, because they've always used to being the man. They've always been the superstar in their high schools.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that we don't have players like that. So you don't have that kind of energy and attitude. And now that we're able probably to get pretty much anybody, I wonder it's going to be a new challenge for him to, and I don't think he cares about keeping anybody happy.
No.
Their job is to keep him happy.
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, that is remarkable news. Love that happened. We'll have to clip this part out and just put it out today because that's really fun. But Angela, I want to go back to what you were saying about the recency of the story and how that makes it even harder to do a movie. This was not nearly as recent, but my YouTube feed lately has been just, the algorithm is at work. So all I'm getting is Hoosiers stuff, commentary on Hoosiers. I'm getting old Hoosiers movie clips. I'm getting sports movies. And I got fed a bunch of clips from the movie that was done about the Kurt Warner story.
Yeah.
And I'd never watched it. I was a Rams fan because I'm from St. Louis. I was happy when that story was going on. And that was a great story. This guy who was working at a grocery store a couple years before and arena football. and I watched a couple of clips, and they got like, I don't know if I'd call him an A-list actor, but Zach Levy was like a big deal. He was in major DC movies, and he starred in Marvelous Miss Maisel as a recurring character, a big role. And I watched these clips. It was awful. It was so cheesy, and so much of it, Angela, was you don't buy him throwing a football.
That's
And
it.
I remembered as I was watching those clips, I remembered about you talking to us about Hoosiers and how important it was for you that the basketball looked like basketball, and that is the single biggest, I think, impediment to doing great sports movies is you may have the great story, but then when you play the sport, they just look terrible.
I hear you both, but I think we're about 6 months away from AI taking care of all of this.
That may be true. All right. So that is a really interesting take. I want to get into the Rose Bowl. I want to get into all of it, but
can I just finish my one thought
sure.
about his Coach Cig's
yeah.
movie film, because it's not just about finding the uncut gems. It's just not watching players over and over and over again and trying to find the players who've been overlooked or underappreciated. He's also watching games of successful teams at all the different levels, looking for new wrinkles, new ideas. He's someone who's never satisfied with this is my system and this is the way we do things and that's it. He is always looking for tweaks. So, he may go to a Division IV game of a team that's 12-0 and wonder what is their secret sauce? What are they doing that I can learn from? So, I mean, that's one of the things that I think is a mark of somebody who's successful, who is constantly open to evolving and growing and learning and never satisfied.
One of his great quotes is, if you aren't getting better, you're getting worse.
That's right.
That he does not believe you can stay where you are.
Correct.
Ward, did you have anything on this?
I just don't want to move on from the making of this movie. That's not going to happen until Angelo gives us his casting choice.
Oh no, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Yeah, I'm not. I don't even want to imagine or think about it.
Yeah, that's because he knows he's going to do it in a few years. That's why. That's why. All right, I want to take a step back and talk about the Cig story and the IU football story, because it's really a 2-year story right now. It did not start at the Rose Bowl or the Big Ten Championship. When, Angelo, and you have been following IU football since you were about 3 years old, when you moved to Bloomington, when did you know that there was something different? Because we saw big success with Tom Allen. Took him a few years, but there was the 2019 season was a great season for Indiana, played in a bowl game, January bowl game, 2020 shortened because of COVID, but we were beating Penn State and, we were on our way. When did you know that there was something different about this version of IU football with Cignetti? I assume in the 2024 season.
It may be a small thing, but the one we always had, my friends who've been, long-suffering fans for the longest time. We've lived through teams and games where Indiana is looking promising. Things are looking good. And somehow they managed to mess things up. I mean, and we got a phrase that we kind of found that explains everything. So in Chinatown, when Jack Nicholson character is, at the very end, and his lover is killed, his lover's daughter is killed, and Faye Dunaway's daughter killed. Is my sister, and he's trying to make sense of all of it, and his fellow detective says, "It's Chinatown, Jake." And so what we do is, after we blow a 3-touchdown lead against Rutgers, we turn to each other and said, "It's Indiana football, Jake."
Well,
all right.
This is when
so the reason I say that I'm sorry, Ward, but the reason I say that is one of the things that became really apparent early was these teams did not make mistakes. They were efficient. They were not beating themselves. they were, even if they weren't, scoring touchdowns or looking like completely meshed, there were teams that team in 24, it got better and better and better to the end and I think that the real turning point for me was that Nebraska game. It was like we were looking good, and then this was the big test because Nebraska with Dylan Raiola they were kind of on a hot streak, and they were rated higher than Indiana, if you remember at the time.
And weren't they like 5-1 or something like that at the time?
I'm sorry.
Weren't they like 5-1 or something like that at the time?
Yeah, they were 5. They were 5-1. Yeah, and they were rated higher. People were all pumped up about Matt Rule, how he's turned the program around, and we destroyed them. That was a beatdown, the likes I have not seen in Memorial Stadium in probably my lifetime. Honestly, what did they score, 70 or something like that? It was like, wow, this is different. That's when I really kind of I started to think what's happening here is not something that's ever happened before.
Well,
that was my first clue.
Just prior to that, when they came out here for the UCLA game, it's Indiana football, Jake's story that was the first time I'd ever gotten to take my kids to an IU football game because it was 10 minutes from our house. And we're sitting there and things are going pretty well in the first half. And I'm explaining the sport of football to my kids because they've just shown no interest whatsoever, but we've drugged them to this incredibly beautiful setting at the Rose Bowl with the San Gabriels. And my daughter kind of gives in and she's like, oh, okay, Dad, explain to me football, but I'm also needing to explain to them Indiana football. So as it's getting into the second quarter, I'm like, see, we have the momentum now. Things are going our way, but just watch. This is Indiana football. And in a little bit here, we're going to shit the bed. Just watch.
Yeah.
And then we got into the locker room and we're like, you know what? This actually isn't bad for us. That was a pretty good half. Now, don't worry. In the third quarter, the wheels are going to come off because it's Indiana football. And then we just destroyed them in the second half. And I didn't know what to tell my kids. I was like, I was basically like, don't get used to this. This isn't what happens to us. But everything he's done since has defied those expectations.
Well, and you raise a really good point because that's true. I mean, everything you described was how I was mentally approaching this game. I thought we were going to lose the game. I really did. Before we went out there, okay, this is our first road game. We're going to be exposed finally. We're going to revert. It's the old Indiana football, and they pulled that game off in a very impressive fashion. And I thought, well, this could be a unicorn game. This could have been just maybe UCLA's terrible. You know how it happens if you always like you can't enjoy success by saying, oh, they're UCLA is horrible. That's what the problem is.
Both were true.
But after that Nebraska game, I'm thinking, no, it's us. We're really good. Things are different.
I remember my biggest, and I've told this story on this podcast a few times, but my biggest it's a IU football, Jake, story is when I was in school there. I can't remember if it was my freshman, sophomore, junior year, but we were playing Ohio State at the end of the year. I think it was the last game in the regular season. And Ohio State was ranked number 1 in the country. And we were beating them going into the fourth quarter. And it wasn't a high scoring game. It was very low scoring, but we were beating them. And then there was a play where we dropped back. We had the ball and winning in the fourth quarter. We dropped back. And again, I don't remember who the quarterback was. I apologize. But we dropped back and the Ohio State player comes up to our quarterback and simply takes the ball from him. It wasn't a fumble in traditional sense. It wasn't a pass that got batted up and fell into somebody's arms. He took the ball from him and ran it for a touchdown. And that was the end of the game. And it's IU football, Jake. But I want to go back. Angelo, look, Terry Hepner came in, an infamous press conference, which I loved, the crystal bowl in front of him, the singular rose that he held, daring to dream about what Indiana could possibly be. We've had coaches with some bluster and some swagger to them. What was your take when Cig went on the floor of Assembly Hall and said, Purdue sucks, but so do Ohio State and Michigan? I win, Google me. What was your take on all of that kind of swagger before any of these games took place?
I personally loved it. The one thing that it became immediately apparent, the difference between him and Tom Allen in those initial press conferences. Tom was such a nice guy that if a question was asked a second time in a maybe slightly different way, he would answer in a very kind and explain it all over again to that second reporter. And that first press conference, people remember the Google Me thing, but what I remember was someone asking the same kind of question in slightly different words. And he said, I already answered that question. Next.
We talked about it on the podcast when that happened. It was
Yeah,
the best.
I loved it.
I
And,
agree.
you know, to me, he was so no nonsense in a way. A lot of people have compared, talked about the comparison with him and Knight. And I think Knight could be cruel, and disdainful of the press in a way that Cignetti is not. He's just direct and matter of fact. He doesn't want to waste words. He doesn't want to indulge anybody, but he doesn't want to be rude and mean to somebody. But I love his just, this is who I am unapologetically, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is the amount of information I'm going to give you at this time, and don't ask me anymore. And I kind of, Knight was very much that way too.
Yeah, the similarity is that neither of them has the mechanism to suffer fools at all.
Exactly.
They deal with not suffering fools a little differently.
Yes.
Knight would smell blood in the water
Yeah.
and then go on a soliloquy to just ruin the entire American sports media with
Right.
it. But and Cignetti just shuts it down and moves on. And it's very clear he's not going to have patience for it.
And I think Cig has this real time, just where he is using the press to help manipulate his players, pull the levers with his players he needs to, as Coach Knight used to sometimes. But then at the next press conference or the next game or even the following season, he'll be like, yes, that's what I'm doing. That's what I was doing. Like, he's got this almost, not that he reveals what's going on behind the scenes with their strategy and their scheming, but he's already talking a lot this season about how all of last season was calculated with what he was saying. And even the message he wants to give to his players is like, well, I said that last week because I was letting them know. It's almost like he doesn't need to play games. He just tells you what he's doing. And somehow, to your point of like, this team doesn't beat itself, Angelo, like, how does our team never miss a tackle? I'm sure all coaches at all programs say tackle this way and do it and don't mess up, but our players do it. And I wonder, what is it about him that actually gets the players to execute what he wants, even though all the coaches are saying something similar?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the how in sync his assistant coaches are with him.
100%.
And really, because the OC and the DC are really running the practices. And they are the ones that make sure they correct every problem. And he's the CEO, and he's looking over everything. And if he sees anything, he's going to go in and interject his own. And you were talking about he doesn't suffer fools gladly in terms of the press. He doesn't suffer fools gladly in terms of players either. If you don't do your job, you're not playing. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about being a nice guy. I mean, who's again the exact opposite of Tom Allen, one of the nicest human beings around I've ever met, and he was very kind to his players. The very LEO stuff.
Yeah.
But Coach Cig is not an LEO guy, but he also has his players who love him, which is interesting because he knows that he cares about them because they're all in sync, wanting the same thing, to get better. And he knows those players know by him making them better, the team will, success. It was the tide raises all boats. And, just think the amount of attention and and the stock of the NFL stock status of so many players, if they'd gone to some other school, that no one would have paid any attention to him. I mean, if Aiden Fisher stayed at JMU, he wouldn't be talked about like in the third or fourth round. I guarantee it.
You know, it's interesting. I remember the moment where Tom Allen, and we love Tom. I still love Tom. I think he is, like
I
you
do
said,
too.
just a great
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
and wanted it very badly for
He did.
Indiana and worked
Yeah.
his ass off for it. There was that moment where there was that great play on the field and he sprinted towards the player and jumped up and almost knocked himself out, but like cut his face on the player's helmet.
Yes. Yes.
And then cut to, I watched the Rose Bowl for the, fifth time, I think, since it happened last night. And Kalon Black runs the ball in for a touchdown. It was really interesting. It was like at the end of the third quarter, Kalon almost breaks through. I think he gets like a 15-yard run, but just is tackled by his ankle and could have broken it. And then 3 plays later in the fourth quarter, he breaks it and runs in for the touchdown. And there's a very quick shot of Cig and Kalon on the sideline. And Cig walks up to Kalon and extends his hand for a very businessman-like handshake.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And I just was like, that's the culture there. Like, you
Yeah.
did your job.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to come over and congratulate you. Good
Right.
job. But
Right.
I'm not going to get too high. I'm never going to get too low.
Yeah.
Everything is accountable. It really is just a totally different culture. Okay, so let's go to the end of last season.
Can I interject one quick story?
All the time.
Okay, the contrast between Tom Allen and Coach Cig. And I was told this, and I don't know if it was in confidence or it was secondhand. I'm not going to
Secondhand.
swear by it, but it's this is going to be close to the truth, if not exactly true.
Nobody
So
listens anyway,
He was being shown around when he first, because everything happened very quickly. And he actually, he made the deal before he actually ever got on campus. So they showed him his office, and he went in, and there was like there were a bunch of it was the office was pretty much cleaned out from Tom Allen, but there were some Leo stuff, LEO stuff. I don't know if it was a poster or a hat or something like that. And Coach said to this guy who was showing him around, he said, "Who's Leo? Who's this Leo guy?" And he said, "Oh, it was his big, it's on all the lockers. It's like love each other is like Tom Allen's mantra, so on and so forth." And Coach Cig looked at this guy and said, "I never want to see that again. Take it off the lockers."
But I love the story. But what's amazing about it is clearly, like, he didn't want to lead with that. Like, that's not the mantra of his culture. That said, we've heard in recent press conferences the last few weeks how much from him, he doesn't belabor the point, but he talks about how much this team plays for each other.
They do.
And how together they are and how close they are. In the press conference with Dan Lanning that they did yesterday, where they're both on the Zoom, which I, by the way, thought was wonderful, and hard not to like Dan Lanning too. He just seems like a real dude.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. And in contrast to Kalen DeBoer,
yes,
who, that pregame press conference, there was something wrong with Kalen DeBoer. He did not look comfortable. He was weird.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But the loving each other is clearly happening at Indiana,
Yes.
but it's a result of
Exactly.
hard work and accountability and holding each other to a high standard and all of the things that Cig wants to happen. If you do those things, you can't help but play for each other because,
That's right.
So it's a result. It's not the first goal.
Yes, exactly. You don't lead with that. That's
right.
A good point.
So let's talk about the end of last year, because obviously Indiana football last year was, I would argue it was the best story of the football season last year too, the turnaround, until the buzzsaw of Ohio State game, where we made mistakes that we don't characteristically make under Cig, like the punt, the dropped punt that really turned the whole thing around. And then Notre Dame, we got pretty. I know the cosmetic score at the end was closer than what it really was, but we got worked in that game.
Mhm.
And there have not been many times where Cig has missed the opportunity to talk about how much we got waxed in those two games.
Mhm.
Um, did you have the it's Indiana football Jake feeling after those two games? Or by then, were you convinced something different was happening for the future?
Well, to me, it represented what my biggest, what my fear was, or my sense of what the ceiling was for our team.
Yeah.
Because when we were playing when Ohio State and Notre Dame, well, those multi 5-star and 4-star kids, there was to me a talent deficiency on both sides of the line. They just were better. And, because they got better kids, more talented kids, clearly. And no matter how good the coaching could be, I still think, I was afraid that could happen every year. So I wasn't really looking at this season like things would be that different, quite frankly. I
Sure.
thought it would be pretty much the same. I thought we'd win the games we should win. And if we went up against a team like Oregon on the road, I just thought no chance. They got a $40 million roster, right? Uh, and of course Iowa made me nervous. And when we pulled that game out, I still didn't think we would beat Oregon. But when we won that game in a very convincing fashion, I thought, wow, this is something different. Now, one of the things I have to share with you is I met Aiden Fisher before the season started. It was like in fall ball and fall practice, and I congratulate him on a really great season, and he nodded and so on and so forth, and I could see there was something weird about the way he's not said thank you, but it was like and I just kind of threw it out there. I said, I can tell you weren't satisfied with that season. And he said, no, I don't think it's a good season because we lost those two games. That to me is not a good season. I don't care how many wins and I love that. I love the fact that there was and he said there's nobody on our team that looks back and said what a great season. No one on our team is satisfied with what happened last year. So they ended with a bitter taste in their mouth. And Sig talked about that too. That came across in some of his press conferences. He was not happy with the 24 season. He doesn't want participation trophies. He doesn't want, he doesn't want that second best trophy kind of thing. We didn't play to our capabilities. And one of the things that he said is, and what Aiden Fisher said is, I think if we played him again, we could beat Notre Dame. And I didn't know what that mentality was, if it was just like, I think we can win every game. And then he said something. He said, I'm not supposed to tell you this. I'm not supposed to say this to anybody. Okay. Because I brought this up. This was because we actually had it was lunch. Okay. So it was a series of conversations. And I was kind of just pushing him into, what do you think about, this new collection of talent, the new portal guys and so on this time. And I didn't ask him about Fernando. I didn't ask him about any specific players, but I just kind of like pushed him, and he resisted. And he finally said, look, I'm not supposed to say anything. We're better. We're going to be better this year. We're going to be better. I guarantee it. That was it. So I was like walking into this season feeling, if this guy doesn't know, no one knows. And the thing about Aiden Fisher, he's he's not a bullshitter.
Right.
He's straight, answers you straight. He's like not pie in the sky, never high, low. He's just he'll answer you to his best ability. And he was serious. And I didn't think he was working out of a sense of hopefulness or optimism.
You mentioned he didn't get into Fernando specifically. I think we all heard when Fernando was coming, hey, he should be more mobile. This is a guy that the NFL is starting to look at. There's a real chance. Curtis Rourke had an amazing season, especially considering he was playing on, half a leg for the last few games. So I think we all had some hope that Fernando could even be another step up from Curtis Rourke. When did you know, the same way you started getting an inkling about Cig being different? When did you start to feel Fernando was going to be somebody really special?
Yeah, really, it wasn't in that first game. He didn't have a great first game. The team really wasn't quite in sync. I mean, it was hard to tell how good Old Dominion was, but it wasn't clicking yet. He didn't look to be Curtis Rourke yet, but you did see his mobility. His mobility was definitely different. I don't know if it was a second or third game when he started to make throws that were so specific and accurate, and he started to extend plays in which ways in which Curtis Rourke couldn't. That I thought that he was going to be different. He was going to be better. And by the way, I actually did, because I'm crazy, and you guys did the same thing. I went back and looked at a lot of his Cal tape, so I know what he was capable of. I knew that he was extremely accurate, and that he could move, and I was very hopeful that I didn't think he was going to become as good as he became. And of course, one of the things that you can never measure is how do you function best when the pressure is on. And this year, especially that Penn State last drive, it's like this is a better quarterback than I saw at that with those Cal tapes.
I totally agree with you, because look, we've all seen several Indiana quarterbacks have huge games against bad competition.
Right.
And not to disparage any of them, but Richard Lagow had great big games where he threw for 400 yards against the Old Dominions of the world, if you will. For me, it was the moment of he threw the interception against Oregon that he should not have thrown.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the game was over. We're on the road. It seemed like that was it. And his next drive, he just marched him down. And I was like, at Oregon, on the road, all the momentum gone.
Yeah.
And this guy just comes back, and the coaching staff didn't shy away from him throwing the ball.
Yeah.
The coaching staff said, "Are we having fun yet?"
Right. And it was the timing of that. And also, Cignetti was asked so many times in those first 6-7 weeks about Fernando, and he always said, like, he's not there yet. Like, he didn't use exactly those words, but he would talk about he hasn't scratched the surface. He would talk about, like, his footwork wasn't as good as it needed to be at Cal, and those are the things that Whitmer was working with him on.
Right.
And then that narrative stopped about halfway through the season.
Right.
And then it was like Cignetti turned off the, call it motivation, whatever you want to call it, but that stopped, and it was just about, this dude prepares like unlike anyone I've ever seen. You hear stories of Peyton Manning, and I know Ward hates it, but Tom Brady, and the preparation that those guys go through. And you started hearing Cig talk about him in those terms.
Right.
It was that Oregon game to me, and the Iowa one too, where it wasn't looking good at the end and he had to do something. But then it was just like, oh, we've got the best player in the country. I mean, we've got the best player we've ever seen at the quarterback position. From Antoine Randall is probably the most talented guy we've seen at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
But different type of game, not suited for the NFL to be a quarterback, in that way. Then, so we beat Oregon on the road. And you talk about that ceiling that we as fans kind of imposed on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Did you honestly start thinking Big Ten championship, national championship contender at that point?
I did think if you looked at the schedule after Oregon, it was like, we shouldn't lose any of those games. So that means we're going to play Ohio State. I was assuming we were going to play Ohio State in the final. And I thought that, look, it was kind of really hard to appreciate how good Ohio State was, or what their limitations, what their weaknesses were, because their schedule was not great. Okay.
Right.
I mean, they played Texas when they started off, but Texas turned out to be not that great anyway. And it was a low scoring game. So I didn't really get a strong sense I knew what their talent level was. That was off the charts. Okay. That's always the case. But they had those stud wide receivers and in a freak completion, high percentage guy in Julian Sayin. But I wasn't really sure about how it was going to match up, and even up until I mean, by the time we rolled those last teams like Purdue, I was feeling pretty positive, but I still was like, people asked me, I said, I'm not really sure. I just I don't have a sense. I don't know what it's going to be. Can we overcome their talent? And you were talking about what makes Mendoza special. He showed in that game why he's, to me, the most special quarterback that's ever played for Indiana. And that's his ability to make tremendously great throws under high pressures in high pressure situations. That back shoulder throw to Surratt, for that touchdown. And of course, the game ending throw to Charlie Becker.
Oh my
That
God.
was such a dime in the most, I mean, this was, we were to live or die kind of on that throw. And it was like the Penn State last drive all over again. He just blows my mind. I mean, we're not Indiana. We don't win these games without Fernando being great under pressure situations.
It is. I mean, going back to the Oregon game briefly, pulling that off, and to your point about how do we match up with these guys physically, because these are the biggest and baddest dudes in the country. And to me, that was a paradigm shift of how the trenches looked. And we're like, we kind of beat up these guys. We ended up dominating these guys, which was kind of a storyline going into it. How would our lines hold up? Bryant Haynes even was joking about that online. So I thought that was a bit of a shift in my own mentality of like, well, we can play with the big dogs, but it still left me sort of questioning like, maybe Oregon's not as good as I thought, or we thought. But then I think when you look at an Oregon, Penn State, maybe not quite so much, but then again at Ohio State, when you have all these 4 or 5-star studs, they do tend to be younger. A lot of those guys have moved on to the NFL before they get too much experience. And I do wonder, now that we've got a new safety that just committed to us from Wisconsin, who will be entering his 15th year in collegiate football. And, even thinking about the rematch with Oregon next week, that a big advantage we have where it might not be in raw talent, but it might be an experience and just knowledge of the game, because so many of these guys, including Fernando, have gotten so many more snaps at the high major level than Dante or Julian Sayin. I'm not sure you can really quantify that when it comes down to, especially when the lights are the brightest.
I think that's true. And I think Coach Cig has talked about that, that the number of snaps you've taken in college football before you come to play for Indiana is critical. And that's why he doesn't play, freshmen don't play at Indiana. I mean, they got to keep in mind when they come to Indiana, you're not going to get on that field unless you're a freak. And it's very unusual. Now, the better the players he gets in the portal, the less likely the chances of players who are freshmen are going to play. And I think you're right. If you look at our roster this year, we're very experienced. We're old. We're an old team. And I do think that makes a big difference, a huge difference.
14 of our 22 starters are from the portal. 14 of the 22. I mean, it is significant. Okay, so
can I interject something here? Okay, about the portal. There was an article in the Washington Post that was trying to analyze, it was like on, I think last weekend, trying to analyze what was the secret sauce, what made Indiana different, why was this a unicorn season? And they tried. They went down and they did the various, they quoted various players and how they prepare, and it's all about detail, detail, detail. I think that was kind of the main theme. But then I started to read the comments afterwards, and it was one after another a comment that I've heard that really upset me, and I've heard this myself from people who don't really follow college football that much, thinking, "Oh, Mark Cuban must have come in and just got given you guys a big paycheck, and you're just buying great players." So this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen in the NIL portal world, pre-NIL portal world is true, but it's not like we're going out and buying all-stars. We're not getting the top of the heap guys. We're getting guys
until Nick Marsh about 30 minutes ago.
Exactly. That's the changing of the guard right there. But no, we didn't. Best team money can buy. That was like one of the comments. Yeah, it's like, oh, they have all this money to spend. They're just buying. They're buying the success. So to pass it off like that,
I agree.
It really pisses me off.
Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, definitely those 5 in an 18-team conference have more money than Indiana in their roster.
Double.
So at best, we're 6th in the conference.
Yeah,
right. And I'm not counting the SEC schools.
That's absolutely right.
Which
but what about all those Texas schools?
Right, exactly. So, your point is great. So I want to get to the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
Just walk us through your experience going to that game. What was the turning point in that game for you where you thought, oh, we're going to be in this to the end? Just walk us through your experience seeing that in person.
Well, one of the things that I got a strong sense of when I was walking toward the game and waiting forever to get in, we got in a bad line, was how many Indiana fans there were. And it was like, it was crazy. Because I got to know the vice president of Indiana Sports Corporation. Look, he actually offered me a ticket in their booth, which is 50-yard line in their box there. And I passed, and I wanted to sit with the Indiana fans. And I sat in not a great seat, just so I could sit in, and I didn't want to be in a box where I couldn't jump up and yell and scream and like high five people who would probably have to be neutral. All those sports corp people had to be neutral. And I talked to him. I said, "How do you think the ticket sales are going to go?" This was like 3 weeks before the game itself. And he said, "Well, Ohio State fans, they travel. They're right next door. It'll be 50-50 for sure. I'm hoping Indiana fans show up." I talked to him after the game. He said close to 65-35.
Really?
What her estimate was, yes. And when the game was over, by the way, if you looked around that stadium, the only seats that were empty were that section where Ohio State player. I can't imagine, and the rest, it was like 80% was filled. I don't know why anybody would stay if you're not an Indiana fan. So to me, the energy in that place was bigger than any Colts game I've been to, except for the New England games in the playoffs, right? It was insane. And I was thinking, I just hope that this energy can lift and transport our team to beat the big bad guys. And I'm honestly assuming in my mind that one of our advantages is that Ohio State thinks they're going to roll us.
Yes.
They've already beaten us once, and they think they're better. They really do. I mean, on paper they are. I mean, the numbers are great for them, and they haven't been beaten. They haven't even been tested. So it's like, this is another upstart Indiana. We're just not going to toss them off. So when it looked like it was going to be trench warfare, and it was like a lot of things. I know we need breaks. Things have to go our way. And I just hope that we can make sure that we don't make any mistakes, number one, and number two, that we play with the same kind of discipline we've always played with all year long, and that we will find a spot. We will find a way. And we need to shut down put pressure on saying and shut down, not shut down, but limit the number of catches Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate would make. And all those things were taking place. And I still wasn't thinking we're going to win that game until their field goal kicker missed a 29-yard field goal. I was thinking, this is our game. We're going to win this game. I turned to my brother. I said, that's a sign. To me, that's the sign. And again, that Charlie Becker, that Mendoza to Charlie Becker throw, it was like, I started crying. I mean, I was in tears because it's not only the success of it, and because I've never held the Big Ten championship game. It was almost like an afterthought. I've never been a big fan of conference championships, especially in the day of playoffs now. But it was Ohio State, and I've always just hated Ohio State. And part why I've hated Ohio State is that all the home games against Ohio State over the last 20 years have had more Ohio State fans in Memorial Stadium than IU fans. And that they just look down at Indiana. It's like they look down on us, and to beat them in that fashion. And to see, I just love to see the faces of the Ohio State fans as they are walking out. You know, they were stunned, more stunned than no Alabama fans. I think Alabama, the fans, they knew they had a team that was questionable, but Ohio State thought that they were untouchable. The Ohio State fans thought they were going to roll to the national championship. They're defending national champs, and they had not been beat since. So that was one of the greatest experiences, if not the greatest experience I've ever had watching a football game in my life. The only thing I can compare it to was Indiana beating Purdue in 1967 to go to the Rose Bowl. That was the only thing I can compare it to. But honestly, it was bigger because there were more people in that stadium. There was more energy. I looked at my Aura ring, and I was like, my heart rate was like 120, like the entire game. I don't think, looking back on that Purdue game, I was like surprised we were in it because they were big favorites, 1967. Mm-hmm. It was a shock that we won it. Honestly, I never saw it coming, that Terry Cole running, breaking through and winning in our goal line stand. That team was very different because they were the cardiac kids. They came back and they won games that no one predicted they would win, game after game after game. So it was just kind of a different kind of experience. But it's not recency bias. That was simply the best game I've ever seen in my life, football game I've ever seen in my life, in person.
Well, and I think you made a great point about Ohio State really hadn't been tested. And yeah. And again, you could talk about the youth factor a little bit there too. But when you look at what IU went through, even those early games like Old Dominion and Kennesaw State ended up being better teams than anybody thought they were going to be. Cig might have known, based on who their coaches were, that those would be good early tests for us. Right. But to nail biter at Iowa, could have easily gone the other way at Oregon. Right. Penn State, like it looked like we were dead to rights until, for me, the single greatest drive in IU football history that I've watched, based on where they were, what had been happening, and those 5 ridiculous passes with the greatest catch we've ever seen at the end of it. And then you get to Ohio State. So I think now, as we look towards another game with Oregon, I think you're looking at another team. You look at their schedule. I don't think they've had as tough as schedule. I think their wins, aren't as impressive. And I'm not saying they're not still really scary, but I do think that we continuously have found ways to win when it's really coming down to the wire. Those are 4 tough games, all on the road or a neutral site. It does prepare one better to have a greater chance of winning the next time you're in that situation.
You mentioned the Penn State game, and the one thing I want to point out about that last drive that to appreciate it even more, a good friend of mine is a Penn State fanatic, goes to all the games, and he did that drive among 90,000 fanatic, whiteout Penn State fans who had nothing to cheer about practically all year long. Totally. This was their Super Bowl. This was they were going to finally show what Penn State and the tradition was all about. by beating this undefeated team that everybody was talking about. So in the same way that I was talking about Indiana fans willing that Ohio State victory, he said that he felt like there was so much at stake for the Penn State fans to redeem their season just in that one way. You had 90,000 people hoping and praying that Penn State would come up with a play after play after play to stop them. And then he said it was like a dirigible, and someone shot a hole in a dirigible, the amount of air that came out of it. It was like so devastating. He said people walked out of that stadium crying. So so he did that in that environment. And you can't tell that on television, because they mute it. And you had Gus Johnson going nuts during the entire.
I thought he had a stroke. I thought he had a stroke on the air. All right, Angelo. So Omar Cooper, touchdown back of the end zone.
Yeah.
The Coop catch, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Or the Watt shot. Which moment, if you're ranking in the history of Indiana sports, which one do you put above the other?
That's really unfair. That's not fair at all. I'm actually going to have to go. I'm going to have to. I hate to say this. I'm going to have to go with the Watt shot, and I'll tell you why. It was a combination of factors, and maybe the biggest factor is I was there and I experienced it, and I've never heard. I've been in a lot of loud assembly halls. I've never heard a sound like that. It was like I felt I was lifted out of my. I was standing, of course, but I mean, it was like I jumped so high. I'm surprised I didn't get a knee injury coming back down. I didn't know I had that much vertical.
You thought you'd pull a Stephen Daly.
Exactly. But, and also consider that the hatred we had for Kentucky.
Right. It's Kentucky.
I just didn't have the same angst toward Penn State, and there was just a lot more contextually that went into that Watt shot than that because even if we had not, if he didn't come down, we'd still be okay. We'd still be playing the Big Ten championship, right? We'd still beat Ohio State. We'd still be where we are. I mean, that was just a matter of inches, but it was the best. It was among the best football shots. So it's not better than the Watt shot. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So with the Big Ten championship now in the trophy case, we have this kid, Fernando Mendoza, who's going to New York. He's, especially after that Ohio State game, it's basically like the odds-on favorite. Can you just kind of take us through the dawning realization for yourself that Indiana University football was going to have a Heisman Trophy winner? Were you kind of nervous that maybe they'd take it away from them at the last second just because
it's IU football, Jake?
Because it's Indiana football,
Yeah.
Jake. And
there was a kind of a little bit of a momentum shift in those last, and I did Buck Sewer say that he voted for Pavia? It was like somebody weird that you would think would be a big Indiana fan, and that there was this kind of Pavia thing that was happening. And but honestly, I was very I was confident, but I'll give you one little piece of information why I wanted it more, not just for Indiana, but and for them, but Fernando and his family. But he said something before he went that really struck me as so prototypical Fernando and so meaningful that I wanted this trophy more by saying if he won, he was going to leave the trophy in Bloomington. And I thought, wow. We got to get that trophy here. I want that trophy here in Bloomington.
Now, as Ward pointed out, did you know that when you win the Heisman, you get 2 trophies?
I found that out later. So it took a little scene off of the.
Do you think Fernando knew it?
No, he didn't know it because we're all Indiana fans and none of us know what happens when you win a Heisman Trophy.
No, right. That's right. I honestly think he didn't know it. I don't think he knew it.
I agree with you totally.
He
I
wouldn't
agree
have said
totally.
It. No.
All right.
But to me, there was even more emotion than I expected when that young man went up there to claim that trophy for himself, for his family, for his teammates, for Indiana University, for all of us, not only because 138 years or however long the Heisman's been around that we haven't gotten one, but because that that young man is now going to be one of the great ambassadors for our university for the rest of our lives. And I just could not think of
Beyond all
somebody.
of our lives.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
yeah,
no,
that's
that's what I'm saying. Like he's, he's going to definitely carry that mantle beyond our time here. And just to wait so long to have somebody look like, what if you were Vanderbilt and Pavia won, and that's the asshole who's got to be representing you for the next few decades? So
yeah.
to me, I kind
Like
of wonder
Johnny
from,
Manziel.
yeah, from
Yeah.
your perspective, Angelo, what does it mean to not just have a Heisman Trophy in Bloomington, but he's the guy who got it for us?
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that because I feel like I've heard variations of, I knew it was going to be a great speech. Okay. I knew that acceptance speech would be different. And just because of who he is. And I've heard him talk about his family. I've heard him talk about the people that matter to him in his life that helped him get to where he got to and helped him win that award. I didn't expect to get as emotional as I did. I mean, I was like, my tears were running down my,
Yes.
when he got choked up talking about his family and went through his mother, his father, his brother. It's just like, and you saw them crying. It's like, I lost it. I was totally gone. I'm thinking, if that's not a great representation of our program, of our university, of our community, I don't know what is. I mean, you have to be cold-hearted not to be moved by that young man.
I had two things about it. I was watching it with my daughter, who has told me multiple times that she will marry Fernando Mendoza. And now she's 15, but she's going to marry Fernando, and our younger daughter, her younger sister, is going to marry Alberto. So that we're going to keep it in
That's
the
a
family.
great double wedding.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully Fernando will pay for it.
Let's hope. When he went into Spanish, that's what got me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was about it, but when he switched into Spanish and spoke to his grandparents,
That was beautiful.
that's
Yes.
when the waterworks turned on for me.
Yeah.
The one nitpick I have is I thought the producers dropped the ball because when you go through rehearsal and you put the speeches in the prompter, you should be able to see that the prompter is reflected in the window behind him. And you don't want to see prompter when you're giving an emotional speech. All you have to do is change a little bit of lighting, put some more scrim on the window. You can fix that. And I hated seeing that. They dropped the ball on the ESPN side of things.
Oh my God, the producer comes through here. This is the guy who, I honestly didn't. I was so wrapped up in the speech, I didn't notice it.
Okay, good.
It didn't bother me.
Yeah, I only noticed it when like the guy who represented the Heisman company was talking and you're bored. So that's when my eyes found the prompter.
All right. So we win the Heisman. And now your entire focus gets to be on the buildup over the next several weeks to Indiana playing in the Rose Bowl. Now, at that time, we don't know who we're playing yet, but we're playing in the Rose Bowl.
And we
Angela,
do know that we're the number one team in the country and we're undefeated and we're the Big Ten champs.
But Angelo is a lifelong Indiana fan where the Rose Bowl was the championship because the Big Ten played the Pac-10 and then the Pac-12. What did it mean to just know that Indiana was coming to Pasadena to play in the granddaddy of them all?
Well, I already mentioned that I knew I couldn't make it. But one of the reasons that was killer for me was that I actually did go to the 1967 Rose Bowl. I was there. It was an amazing experience for all of us. Of course, not what happened on the field. But John Eisenbarger, Jade Butcher, Harry Gonzo, all good friends of mine. And things were so different back then that one of the things I remember about John was that he went to like Hollywood parties and met like it was some babes, and he was like, it was a totally different world. I'm not sure that the team didn't party a little too hard, during
Right.
that. They had a big buildup with a lot of publicity and a lot of dinners, and they had Lowry's Prime Rib where all the players went to it. You remember that was a tradition at one time.
Yeah.
And of course, we partied pretty hard too. I mean, what I remember more than anything about that game was O.J. Simpson running for a touchdown and me trying to nurse a hangover. Those are my memories. So it wasn't a great experience that day of. Everything leading up to it was great, but it's a special place. I've been there before for other games. I went to a couple of UCLA games there, when I lived in LA. So I used to go to the flea market there too.
Yeah.
Occasionally. Yeah,
World's greatest flea market.
it's a great flea. So yeah, I mean, the tradition is so rich. It was so exciting to be there, and I was again a little nervous about the once we learned that then people asked me, which team did I hope we played? And it was Oklahoma or Alabama. And I said, I really, really want to beat Alabama, but I hope it's Oklahoma because
Yeah.
I think we can beat Oklahoma. I really have confidence that we can beat Oklahoma. But I think when Alabama, has their game together, when they're playing well, they've been up and down, but when they're on, they're really good. They've got all those studs, and they scare me more than Oklahoma does. So when they won that game after being down by 17, I'm thinking, they might be on kind of a roll. I happened to go back and watch the conference championship with Georgia, and they didn't look good, and I'm thinking, and I see they don't have a running game. And I'm feeling more and more like we really should be more than 7-point favorites because if you're one dimensional, you're not going to beat us. Ty Simpson's not going to beat us if you don't have a running game, because Brian Haynes is going to figure out how to stop him. So I was pretty confident in our offense and our defense, and I was feeling pretty good about it. I didn't expect a 38-3 win, though, quite frankly. That was a sweet how much fun being there that second half. You probably hugged and kissed everybody within 10 feet of you every day.
Hugged and kissed Ward.
Of it. What?
I hugged and kissed Ward several times. I mean, I've watched it several times, and it's always a different experience when you're there versus watching it on TV.
Yeah.
And in watching it, but remembering what it was like there and watching it on TV. That second quarter, 4th down and 1, where there were all kinds of shenanigans going on with it.
Yeah.
They lined up one way, then they lined up a different way, then they called a timeout, then we called a timeout, then they go for it. Stopping them there and getting that ball back just seems like the moment. It felt like everything changed because at that point it was just 3-0.
Yeah. No, so this is what's interesting about watching it on television as opposed to being there. You get to see they have the camera on Coach Cig. Did you know you've seen that raised eyebrow? It's like
amazing.
What are these guys doing? What do they think? Yeah, what is going on here? They're not really good. He's an idiot if he tries to go for a 4th down here at this stage of the game on the 35-yard line. What are they? It was almost like he didn't want to give anything away except for pretend bafflement. I think that's sort of the look. And then the other thing that I've never been a big Kirk Herbstreit fan or Chris Fowler. I mean, they're pros, they're great, but I really loved them. I thought they were great in their commentary because they called it. They basically said, "Oh, Alabama quit." In so many words, and that's what you saw in the television in close-ups was after we came, and I'll tell you, to me, the turning point where they just gave up was when they got stopped, and at that first and at the beginning of the first half, in that first drive when they got stopped and we went down to score, you could see the entire team deflate to a place where you could see it in their face when they did close-ups, their body language. We're not going to win this game. I think they accepted defeat after that score going up 24-3. So
it is fascinating, as wonderful as it is to be there with 65,000 other Hoosiers, and it does become an extended party through the second half. All that stuff when the game's still in the balance, which it largely was for the first half. you miss so much of what's going on that the national broadcast gives you with the close-ups, not understanding until we get a text from one of Eric's buddies a little bit later that Simpson might have gotten hurt. Because to me, the real sort of death knell was when Ty Simpson ran for that first down, got his ribs busted, fumbled the ball. We got it back and went down for the score.
Yeah.
Just seeing that in the stadium was like, okay, well, that's huge. But then if you were following on at home, you were starting to get some sort of indication that, oh, there's trouble. He's hurting. I had no idea they were sort of looking at his ribs over at the bench until, I don't know, 45 minutes later. But it's so much more fun to go back and watch that broadcast when what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. I have two things. First of all, let me just say this about Ty Simpson. I think that it was Herbstreit who said, even if he hadn't broken his rib or injured himself, I would have thought about replacing him anyway. He was a deer in the headlights. He was not playing well. He was freaked out. He had happy feet back there. It was like he wasn't doing his job at all. And he's had some great games this year. But the second thing, and I wanted to share this with you, I forgot to tell you this earlier. One of the great pleasures that I ever experienced watching an Indiana football game was rewatching the Skycast that was through the SEC network.
The
And they had
Alabama
two
announcers.
Alabama homers
Yes.
that were doing the game. Even to the point they didn't cover up for it. They kept on saying "we," talking about Alabama. Did you watch that?
I did. It's
Oh
been
my
one
God,
of
how much fun.
I don't know how I recorded it, but it recorded, and I watched that. My buddy said, you got to watch the Skycast. You can hear the Alabama announcers. And so one of my 5 viewings has been that, and you are so right. It is beyond enjoyable.
First of all, they were bitching about Indiana holding, in the first half, and any little thing that happened that was potentially up, like could go to a score, or, oh, we got a sack or something like that. They got excited, their voices raised, and then you could hear the deflation in their voices. The energy started to sap out of there were like periods where they didn't even speak. I don't think they could come up with anything to say.
And the national broadcast did such a good job of definitely cutting to deflated Alabama fans more than celebrating IU fans. Like, I felt there were more like wide shots of a whole sea of Hoosiers jumping up and down, but then they would cut to just disillusioned, heartbroken, and just moody Alabama fans being like, why did we spend this money?
All right. So before, you talked about how, when we played Ohio State, they looked down on us and they thought they were going to win. I would argue that's been the case with Oregon when we played them at Oregon. I think they thought they were going to win. I think Iowa, when we played at Iowa, thought they were going to win because it's Indiana football, Jake. And now we are set up for a semifinal game where all of that is behind us. Oregon does not go into that game feeling like they're going to beat us or confident like they were before. They know they're in for a fight, and they've got a chip on their shoulder, and they still have the $40 million payroll, and they just got done beating Texas Tech, who is the 4 seed, 23-0. How you feeling going into this rematch against Oregon?
Not confident. Very, very nervous for all the reasons that you laid out. I did watch that Texas Tech game, and all the things that I feared about how Oregon was going to play against Indiana at Autzen came. That was the team that I thought I was going to see against Indiana. I saw against Texas Tech.
Yeah,
their defensive line was so fast. Those what's his name, Ungale or something like it's a Samoan name or whatever. He was phenomenal, and he was kind of neutralized against Indiana. I don't even know how that happened. You barely heard his name, and their defensive backs are so fast. I mean, there's so much speed on that defense. And Dante Moore just looked much more confident. There was nothing about his game that he didn't know what he was going to do, and then he could make quick adjustments. he was playing with a lot of confidence, and he did not play with a great deal of confidence against Indiana. I think that what happened was that they had success with Dante early. He had never been sacked, right? Like just like Julian Sayin had never been sacked before Indiana. And we got in the backfield 2 or 3 times, and it got him on the run and got him shook up, and he was never the same the rest of the game. I don't think we're going to see that same Dante Moore this Friday. So I'm very nervous, but I think everything has to go our way, like it's gone our way, like it went our way in Ohio State to win this game. And I think that it will be interesting to come up. We'll see what new wrinkles we come up with, because the thing about when these coordinators prepare for each other, it's a real, you've heard this term before, it's a real chess match. So they're going to, the Oregon OCs or the coordinators are going to see what they did wrong and counter it in this game. And our coordinators know they're going to do that. So they're going to have to counter what they expect the counter is. And that's where they're going to have to come up with some new wrinkles. I think they're going to have to come up with some different ways of confusing Oregon, or getting them into a place where they're not prepared. And I have great confidence in our staff, our team, but we're just going to have to play a perfect game to win. I think a near perfect game to win. And look, we can do it. We played a near perfect game against Alabama.
Yep.
I, like you, am very nervous, so I am looking for ways to feel a little bit better. Like, hey, this is maybe an advantage we do have, because we all know the psychological advantage the chip on the shoulder team that lost the first game earlier in the season has. I'm like, well, there's the travel. They got to go back and forth now a couple of times in a couple of weeks, flying back east. But then also their coordinators are getting ready for other jobs.
That was the only positive that I think came into play, because someone mentioned this, and I don't think Dan Lanning's not going to affect Lanning, is why did Ohio State lay an egg in their playoff game? Well, Brian Hartline took another job, and Ryan Day decided to take over play calling, which he hadn't done in 4 years.
Right. They changed what they did to get there.
That has to be a factor. Now, they're not going to change play callers, obviously, the coordinators, but I wonder, and this is something that was pointed out in the press conference yesterday, these coaches this window for the portal being open is so short, and their number one priority is not going to be, I'm talking about their coordinators, they need players. They got to be getting those portal guys into their programs more than they have to get ready for. I'm not saying they're going to not spend time doing it, but they're not going to prioritize like our coordinators are.
And how hard must it be, if not impossible, to convince a talented football player to go to Kentucky? I mean, Jesus. God. One thing that I thought was interesting in whatever the countless analysis I've been listening to over the last few days was in terms of in-game adjustments. At the beginning of the Rose Bowl, we all saw Alabama's throwing like a zero blitz in that first series, and we don't know what's going on. Fernando got sacked twice in that first series, and at that point, Shanahan presumably throws out the first 15 plays they have scripted, because they're like, okay, they're doing something we've never seen before. So forget what we were going to do. Here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to make them pay for blitzing us. And which we all know Fernando was like 6 for 6 on those all out blitzes. And he just started creaming them right away. So I think not only do our coordinators do a fantastic job in game prep, but to see real-time decision-making, because how could we not all be sort of horrified by what Alabama looked like in that first series? But these guys just used their beautiful minds to be like beep, bop, boop, bop, bop, and had it beat by the second series.
Yeah, I mean, look, their coordinators are really good. I just think they have more pieces to play with than Alabama did.
I agree.
Sure.
I will say this, because you said, we got to play a near perfect game to win. And I would tend to agree with that, because I think Oregon is rolling and they're going to play a really good game. What does give me confidence is we did not play a near perfect game against Ohio State. We
No, we
didn't.
did not. No.
We had several penalties that have been uncharacteristic of us, big penalties that gave them first downs in big ways. We had a turnover in that game on a busted play that didn't look good. There, you could argue whether it should have been a penalty on Ohio State on that screen pass, wide receiver screen. But we did not play a perfect game against then the undefeated number one team in the country on a neutral site, and we won the game.
Yeah.
This is a different Indiana team in every respect. And it feels like even if we're not playing perfect, we've got enough of that other stuff to get us through those moments. We did not play a near perfect game against Penn State. We didn't play a near perfect game against Iowa. But we're good enough to stay in those games when we're not playing near perfect till the point in the game where we do play perfect. And that gives me just more confidence about the team in general. I cannot envision a game right now with this Indiana team against anybody, anywhere, where we are not in the game. I just can't envision it.
I agree.
So
I know that we will be in the game. And look, it's such a cliche that, it's a game of inches, a tip ball here,
Right.
A slip there, whatever. I just think we need a couple of breaks for us to win this game. I think we need a tip ball interception, for example. And we can't give up. We have to win the turnover battle to win this.
I totally agree. All right. You got more football?
Yeah. This is sort of my last sort of big picture about football. And I'll set it up with the script I've written, starring their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and led by their back-to-back National Coach of the Year, the number one ranked, number one seeded, undefeated Big Ten and Rose Bowl champion Indiana Hoosiers. Are they a team of destiny, Angelo? We talk about coordinators and scheming and injuries and all this kind of stuff, but I have a feeling, a suspicion, you, like myself and many other Hoosiers, are romantics at heart. And is there just something inside of you, logic aside, something you'd never even ever think to mention to Curt Cignetti? Is this a team of destiny that is going to go 16-0 and win the national championship?
I would like to think so. I would like to think, but my head can't go there. But I think we neglected to mention one thing about this game that's going to be in Indiana's advantage. And it was the same advantage that they had in the Rose Bowl. It's going to be 80-20 fans in the Peach Bowl that are going to be, it's going to be like a home game for Indiana. I guarantee it. Those Oregon fans are not going to travel like we are. I mean, there's so many alums like right in Florida and Georgia. The tickets are insane. My tickets are not that great, and they're going for $1,200 on StubHub now. And it's they're Indiana fans. It's going to be very helpful for us to play in a home game environment. I really believe that. And yes, I would love it to be a game of destiny. But there's also something else. I believe in energy, because I think the energy within that environment at Lucas Oil Stadium helped Indiana win that game.
Agreed.
And I think the same thing is true with the Peach Bowl. But and here's one additional thing about when I talked to the sports core people, a lot of those seats, I said, you saw the sections where Indiana sat and where Ohio State sat. There was half of the other seats were filled. And I said, where do those seats go? Do they all go on StubHub or Ticketmaster? He said, no, sponsors. So a lot of these big bowl games give a ton of tickets to the sponsors. And again, Advantage Indiana. This is such a great story, a national story. A close friend of mine lives in Austin, big Texas fan. He said, every person I know loves the Indiana story. Every person, he said, Indiana's now, it's like Dallas was America's team. Indiana is America's team right now. Nobody outside of Oregon wants Oregon to win. I'm telling you, unless, there's disgruntled Ohio State fans.
Maybe some people in West Lafayette.
Yeah, perhaps. Although I will say this, a good friend of mine went to a bar and watched the game in West Lafayette. His girlfriend lives there. He said it was like all the Purdue fans are rooting for Indiana.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
they were. Yeah, because they're representing the Big Ten. I mean, this was an SEC thing too. Remember, Big Ten SEC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the pleasures of the beatdown. Let's face it. We haven't talked about that.
That's a good
So,
100%.
yeah. So I would like to think that the energy in that stadium next Friday is going to help Indiana propel to the championship.
I think it's a great
win.
point because it felt inevitable in the Rose Bowl when you're
Yeah.
like, oh, holy hell, there's 75% Hoosiers in the granddaddy of them all. There wasn't for me, somebody prone to butterflies and nervous energy. It just felt inevitable.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the sponsor tickets are going to be Indiana fans
Yes.
because it's a national story and they're rooting for this, unicorn journey.
All right. So from one national story to let's talk about a very personal, smaller story that you've
Yes.
been consumed with for the last 2-3 years,
Yeah.
which is Someone
years, yeah.
Saved My Life, the
Oh,
name
correct.
of
Yes.
your new movie that you
Yeah.
have written, produced, and directed, shot
Yeah.
exclusively in Bloomington. Tell us where it sits right now.
We are preparing a strategy of how we're going to release this. A new poster is being made. A new trailer is being made. I just signed a deal with a sales rep who is going to get it out there into the world, and we're going to see what kind of market we have for it. But we're going to have some sort of theatrical something in the spring. And it could be just in Indianapolis and Bloomington, and then it will go to a streamer and then pay-per-view, those kind of those markets that you can rent the film, and we're hopeful, but we got some obstacles. It's a tough market out there. We don't have any names, and it's not like a big film or anything. But I will say that we're going to change the name. I've been really encouraged by this sales team that it's too soft, too confusing. Someone Saved My Life. So we're working on a name change right now. But the poster looks great, and the trailer is coming together.
So you have a title that you're not telling us.
No, we haven't. I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay. All right.
I actually have. Listen to this, and maybe your listeners will jump onto this. But your listeners don't know what the story is either. I'm going to give $1,000 reward to anybody who comes up with a better title than Someone Saved My Life.
Tell us what give our listeners a synopsis.
It's a coming of age story about a freshman in high school, sophomore in high school, who is controlled by his mother and is salutes to her generalship until he meets a stud athlete, handsome guy who invites him to be on the football team, and the mother says no, worried about him injuring his hands because he's a piano player training to be great. And this kid, this stud athlete, convinces him to tell his mother no, and that begins a series of rebellious stages and actions that he goes down the rabbit hole because it turns out this kid's not a good kid at all. He goes into the dark side, and it gets real dark, and he actually moves out of his own home. And that's sort of like, I'm not going to tell you what the last act is, but
please.
Well,
no
I've been
spoilers.
fortunate. I have read the script, and I am
okay. You know it,
excited to
right?
see it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm excited to see it. I do have a pitch for you. You can just send me the money Venmo.
Wait, but you have to listen to my pitch first and then decide between us.
Why do I have to listen to your pitch first?
No, Angelo, before Angelo decides, he needs to also hear mine.
Okay. Mine is the best, and you're going to lose, just so you know.
We'll let Angelo decide.
Look, the title of a movie is really important because
Yes.
it is like your key marketing message of what is this? It's got to grab attention. It's got to convince people to, take their time to either go to a theater or spend the money. So the title of your movie is Cignetti. Who cares what it's about? It's just Cignetti. Take advantage of the zeitgeist right now, Angelo. Make a
That's
corporate
hysterical.
decision,
Yeah.
and there you go.
Mine, I think the only downside on mine is it's already been trademarked. Heisman Mendoza.
All right. right. Well, you heard it. If you've got ideas you heard what the story is about. And if you've got ideas, there's $1,000 waiting at the end of that rainbow. Angelo, is the movie completely done? Are you done editing? Are you done tinkering?
Oh, it's completely done. It's been completely done for about 3 months. And I've been taking this 3 months to interview with different sales reps, to listen to different plans and different options. And there are a lot of them out there for a film, a low budget film like mine. So I've been kind of going back and forth on various ways and various strategies to see which person could give me the best bang for the buck.
I know it's so difficult when you're still so relatively close to the making of the film, and so much from this point on is somewhat out of your hands, but you've completed that creative journey. And how does it sit with you? How does it feel? Do you feel like you made the movie you set out to make?
The short answer is yes, but I also have to say that there are some extenuating circumstances by which I cannot be objective because obviously it's so personal a story. I'm not writing about another team's, going to winning the state championship or a kid who dreams of playing at Notre Dame. That sort of thing. It's that was an other story that I interpreted. I'm interpreting my own story, so I'm completely unobjective, non-objective. And the second part of it is I had such little money. I mean, to make a movie for $2 million as opposed to in today's money, today's value of money, it would be like 25 to 30 for both Hoosiers and Rudy. So we had between 40 and 50 days to shoot those two movies. I had 20 to shoot this one. So it was like a completely different experience. And from the challenges I had, which were much greater than the other films in different ways, I'm very proud of the film that I came up with. I don't think that it looks like a $2 million movie. I think it looks much better than that. And we got a lot from a little. I think we accomplished what we set out to accomplish. I just wish I had another $10 million. It'd be a little bigger movie. It was like the football stuff is not quite as good as the football stuff as I had when I had the money to spend the time. When I shot my All-American, I had 17 days of football.
Wow.
I had to shoot like multiple football sequences, and I had 3 days on this one. So it was a different challenge, but it's not so focused. It's not a sports film. It's not so focused on the football. And I hope it's not quite as realistic as the other stuff I've done, but I hope people understand what I was dealing with.
What does it feel like to watch the movie now beginning to end and see the place that made you, Bloomington, as a character in the movie? You shot this whole thing in Bloomington. Does that fill you with a special kind of pride that you were able to shoot this movie in your hometown in the city that means so much to you?
Well, I'll say two things about it. It was really important to me, and that's the reason I did this independently, was to be able to shoot in Indiana because Indiana doesn't have a film tax credit. If I had raised the money, if I'd done this with a production company or studio, they would insist that I shoot this in a film tax credit state. And I actually shot a lot of the scenes where they really happened to me. So that was including the school where I went to and the football field I played on were the exact same things.
Wow.
So having said that, it meant a lot to me in prep and in terms of my vision for it. But when it came down to actually shooting, and this has to do also with, someone's comment about your character goes in and confronts your mother about this situation. I said, when they would say you go in and you confront in the scene, I said, no, that's not me. That's a character that I wrote that was based on my own experience. And then once you cast the actors, it becomes separate from you even more.
Right.
It becomes more about who they are. And so I actually, for just as a quick example, to describe to people how this works, I had written the character of Shooter for Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean Stanton is a very dolorous, depressed, down and out, sad guy. And then we end up casting Dennis Hopper, who's totally opposite of that, and had the rainbow of colors, funny, kind of whimsical, nuts, and all this stuff. It's like my character that I wrote's gone. It's gone. Once you cast that character, it becomes someone else. Roy, do you understand this?
I do.
It's the marriage between what a writer writes and who that person is, not just their physical, but their energies, their personality. All those things come into play to create different characters. So by the time I was like halfway through the shoot, I wasn't shooting versions of my mother or my friend or myself. I was shooting new people. So it became a separate experience for me.
That's really interesting. That said, it's a personal story. You have a sister, correct?
I have three sisters.
Three sisters. Have you shown your siblings the movie?
No.
Does that make you nervous?
Well, no, I did show my sister. I'm sorry, I did show my sister the movie, and I think it's hard for them.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for them, because it's, look, my mother, the version of my mother that I wrote it's not a positive one. And of course, like a lot of people that you deal with in your lives, I didn't really have the time to show the positive things about her. That wasn't a story about her so much. It was about my experience of her when I was 15 years old.
Right, which is fairly myopic.
It's very specific, very narrow.
Right.
Okay. And it came from an emotional place. But they had their own experience with their mother. And it was a lifelong experience. So they're just seeing this tiny little window, and she comes across not great. Okay. To put it,
put it mildly.
Mildly. And so I think I know for a fact that some of my relatives, some of my sisters and brothers were not thrilled with the script. Okay. They were not happy because they did not want to show, kind of reveal kind of our inner family dynamics and kind of the ugly side of who my mother was at times. So yeah, it's much more complicated for them to see this movie. That's why I've only shown it to my one sister who lives in Manhattan Beach, because I was working on the post-production there, and I invited her to a screening. And
well,
we can't wait to see it. I'm just so I definitely understand the long, arduous journey of getting a small passion project to the completed stages, and then the whole other business side of it, which you're in now, which is definitely not the fun, sexy part. But when we do finally get a chance to see it, I would love to see it on a big screen with lots of people, even if you do a one-off screening here, or maybe you need to go ahead and do a week in an LA theater to make sure you're Academy Award eligible.
I don't see this as Academy movie, but I can guarantee you guys, we are going to do a screening in LA.
Oh, okay? Great.
One of the
we will help you pack it with Indiana folks.
Okay, yeah, get the Pasadena gang out.
Yeah, we would be happy to help. Really excited.
Okay,
Angelo, when this whole thing has been going on with Indiana football, we kept saying, when are we going to have Angelo back on? When are we going to have Angelo back on? Because we know what Indiana football has meant to you and how big of a fan you are. Countless texts between you and I over the last several years, the end of the Tom Allen era, which I know was a difficult one, and just, are we going to see a successful Indiana football program ever?
Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Sure.
I can't tell you the number of times that I would text you positive things about what I see looking forward, and you would mock me. Do you remember that? You would put me down. Why are you a glass half full guy with Indiana football? They're terrible, and they're always going to be terrible. That was your attitude. You have to admit that.
I do admit that things have changed.
now he can be that way exclusively for Indiana basketball.
I'm glad we're not going there. Okay, we got a game. I got a game here in a couple of hours.
Yes, you do. Angelo. It is always just an honor and a privilege to talk to you, and our listeners just love your stories and your perspective. And there's just nobody better to tell the story of Indiana football than the greatest storyteller we know, which is you. So thank you for kind of painting the picture for us over the last 2 years of what this ride has been like. And like I said, we can't wait to see your movie, and I will see you in Atlanta. Let's try to
Great.
get together. I want to be jumping up and hugging you during that game.
And Angelo,
Oh.
I'll see you in Miami.
Okay, I'll be there for sure. Hey, always enjoy you guys. It's so much fun talking to you.
That was a guest. That was a guest.
It's just the easiest conversation with him, isn't it?
That one must assume, whether it's from childhood, his parents, wherever that gift of gab came from, that it shows up in an Oscar nominated screenplay is amazing, but it's not like he saves it for that. It's like
Right.
that's just who he is. And any perspective he has, any take he has on something just comes out in like the order it's supposed to.
A story,
driving to
right? It comes out in a story.
Yeah. And it is. I would love to do a whole other, I don't know if it'd be a pod. It may just be a conversation of his Hollywood stories, because as one of my all-time favorite episodes is when he first came on to tell us the story of the making of Hoosiers, and just story after story, just with that journey, never mind however many years he was out here working on other projects. I could listen to him talk about Hollywood or the Hoosiers for weeks on end.
The Burt Reynolds story is still just maybe the greatest story I've ever heard.
That's the one I tell other people that he told us.
Yeah, and not to retell it, because you can go back and listen to him tell it to you on one of our the first episode we did with Angelo. But Burt Reynolds was in the running to be Coach Norman Dale. Not the choice of Angelo or David, but the people making the movie and paying for the movie wanted a star.
And he was the biggest star in the world.
And he wanted to do it. And Angelo and David did not want him to do it. And they met with him face to face at Burt Reynolds' house. And it is just a sensational story. So again, thank you to Angelo for taking the time. We are days away from the college football playoff semifinal, and more stories to come. As always, follow us on Twitter at Hoosier Hysterics for the Hysterics. No E.
No I.
But the
the
sometimes
sometimes
why. Talk to you next week.
From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier